Who's friends with all the night dreamers talking to you at night? Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's talk show radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers talk show will fix your despair. If you want to talk conspiracies, Night Dreamers is for you. Top secret case, alien space, it's Gary with the news. Tune in on the radio, don't let Big Brother know. They're listening to everything, even Gary's late night show. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Show Dreamers talk show will fix your despair, because Gary's talking to you at night.
The Strange News. I'm Guy Ticker. A man who married 9 women is looking for new wives as he's divorcing 4 of them. Being married isn't always easy. When you have multiple wives, however, this gets a little more tricky, and cracks may begin to show. A man called Arthur O. Urso has revealed that he's looking for new partners to join his polyamorous relationship, as he's in the process of divorcing 4 of his 9 wives. The 36-year-old model shared that one of his marriages broke down just months after the wedding ceremony, leaving him with less lovers than he'd like. A woman gets spiteful revenge on rude McDonald's customer after clash in the drive-thru. And while many fans of the fast food chain are happy to just be able to get some food, wait seems to make others a little more impatient. But here comes the real kicker. She added, "So, when I got to the window, I showed both receipts and took her food too. Now she has to go back to the end of the queue and start all over again." Brutal. Mammoths may have gone extinct much earlier than DNA suggests. When and why mammoths and some other Ice Age creatures died out is a lingering mystery. Dating when these animals went extinct could help reveal what drove them to their demise. Rats can bop their heads to the beat of music. Humans aren't the only animals known to move to a musical beat. Rats in the lab of Professor Takahashi were treated to Mozart's Sonata for 2 pianos in D major. Takahashi's team sped up and slowed down the tempo, as well as played it at its normal speed, observing the rat's motion not only visually, but also with wireless accelerometers, which were surgically placed on the rats. Think of that next time you listen to music. Astronomers discover closest black hole to Earth. Astronomers have discovered the closest known black hole to the Earth. This is the first unambiguous detection of a dormant stellar mass black hole in the Milky Way. Its close proximity to Earth, a mere 1,600 light-years away, offers an intriguing target of study to advance our understanding of evolution of binary systems. Astronomers using the International Gemini Observatory, operated by NSF's Nowhere Lab, have discovered the closest known black hole to Earth. It is, as I said before, the first unambiguous detection of a dormant stellar mass black hole in the Milky Way. It is approximately 1,600 light-years away, so beware. And finally, New York's most haunted places, Litchfield Villa Demons, 95 Prospect Park West, Park Slope, Brooklyn. Though it's in the borough of Brooklyn, headquarters of New York City's Parks and Rec Department, the Litchfield Villa, aka Grace Hill, is an Italianate mansion built in 1854 as a private residence for Edwin Clark Litchfield. It's also the site of a seance gone horribly wrong. According to lore, and written about in Allison Huntington Chase's book, Bizarre Brooklyn Stories of the Tragic, Macabre, and Ghostly, in 1864, Litchfield allowed Margaret Cahill to hold a seance for her son who died in a Civil War battle. The practice took a bad turn when lights flickered, paintings fell from walls, and gusts of wind blew through the mansion. Along with the smell of sulfur, there were 2 demons. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, the home of Night Dreams Talk Radio, with Gary Anderson, syndicated worldwide. Paranormal Talk Radio, like you remember.
Well, JC, now we have had rats trained to drive cars, those little, electric little small cars. Now they're dancing to music. What is going on? I wonder how much subsidized they were for that grant to get them to dance.
Probably right there with $1 million with that other one that was, it was about 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, but they wanted to see if they could train rats to drive these little electric cars and see if they would develop road rage, and they did. I wonder what type of music they danced to, though. That's the interesting part.
Apparently they liked that one in D minor, I guess, whatever it was.
Well, Lucille Ball, Andy Griffith, James Arnaz. What do they have in common? Well, it was classic TV and classic movies, which is something we have lost. Like I mentioned to Dean Butler from Little House on the Prairie last week. We have lost reality. It's so bad. You go watch anything on cable or anything now. It's all, blood here, blood there, killing, wars, zombies and aliens. And nothing, I mentioned to, everybody before, you night dreamers out there, I grew up with a Donna Reed show. I Love Lucy, Andy Griffith show. Father Knows Best. TV that actually told a story. And, when we had Tony Dow on, I didn't know that was the very first show where they showed a toilet in. You remember that episode where they took that lizard and they put it in the toilet tank and the censors didn't want it to air?
It was truly groundbreaking, wasn't it, that episode?
Well, we got Ruta Lee, a famous actress, and she's going to be on right after this.
Recently, the legendary actress Ruta Lee, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, Funny Face, Witness for the Prosecution, received Lithuania's highest honor from former President Valdas Adamkus at a magnificent ceremony in the Vilnius Presidential Palace. And this past week, Ruta Lee was presented a new honor by current Lithuanian President Gitanas Nauseda and First Lady Diana. Ruta Lee's famous Hollywood estate served as the perfect backdrop to receive a visit from Lithuanian President Gitanas Nauseda and First Lady Diana, with Lithuanian Ambassador to the U.S. Audra Plepyte in attendance. The President and First Lady remarked on how a visit to the estate gave them the rare experience of Hollywood's golden era, as it's the former home of entertainment icons Rita Hayworth and Orson Welles. In addition to the Hollywood luminaries that were imagined to have gathered at galas in the estate's palatial living room, or having dinners of 20 or more in the dining hall, as well as the thought of Ms. Hayworth and Mr. Welles themselves making an entrance on the grand staircase, it's like stepping back in time, as mental images of Citizen Kane come to mind. The home still entertains Hollywood elite, as guests of Ms. Lee, past and present, include George Chakiris, Rich Little, Phyllis Diller, Bob Hope, Alex Trebek, Michael Feinstein, Carol Channing, Hugh O'Brien, Sally Struthers, Debbie Reynolds, members of the Rat Pack, and many more. During a recent state gathering with lunch prepared by star chef Joey Santos, Ruta Lee was presented with a gorgeous Lithuanian glass art sculpture in gratitude for her lifelong connection to and pride in her Lithuanian heritage.
Well, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
My darling, may I say, I am so proud to be with you, and that was the most beautiful introduction. Would you please do the honors at my funeral when the time comes? That was gorgeous. I would love to have you do my memorial.
Well, we can certainly do that, and we can actually, I'll have my producer get a hold of the rep, and we'll send that copy of that over to you.
It's gorgeous. It was absolutely gorgeous. And I was so happy to see and hear Lithuanian names being pronounced mostly correctly, which is unusual. Lithuanian names are difficult. They're phonetically very much what you read, but it's somehow hard for most of us Americans to make out what those names are. And wow, what a treat it was to be honored by President Adamkus, and then, of course, Nauseda. And something that might be of interest to you, my darling Gary, and you notice I say my darling Gary because you're my new best friend. I just love you. Nauseda is Anne Gillian's maiden name. Do you remember beautiful Anne Gillian?
Oh, yeah.
From her television series, and of course, she was one of the stars of Sugar Babies on Broadway.
Oh, yeah.
All around the country. Her maiden name is Nauseda. So she was supposed to be at this luncheon that we had here for the president and his beautiful wife. But they were in a terrible, terrible car accident the night before they were to come to my house, and both wound up in the hospital. And I'm sorry to say that Anne's husband, Andy Mercia is her married name, died just a few days ago. And so to all of your listeners who might remember, or I'm sure do remember her from her series and from Sugar Babies and the movies that she made, send up a prayer for Andy Mercia. That I'm sure she would be very grateful for that.
We need to do that too. I got to ask you a question. You originally was born in Canada. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct. In Montreal, Canada. My parents, of course, were born, raised, and married in Lithuania. And both my mother was the smart one who said, let's get out of Lithuania before things get any worse. And of course, they were farm folks. They lived in teeny little villages. My mother used to carry her shoes to church because they had to be passed down to the next girl and the next girl after her, you know. So they were poor folk, and they wanted to come to America, where everybody knew that the streets were paved with gold. And they couldn't get into the United States. The quotas were closed. This was in 1929. And so my father took a job as a field hand in the wheat fields of Saskatchewan in Canada, because the quotas were open there and in Mexico and a few other places. But Canada was right next door to the United States, which is where they ultimately wanted to be. And so he came over and worked in the wheat fields for a year, saved his money, brought my mother over, and eventually I was born there and actually learned Lithuanian as my first language. And I learned English by playing out in the streets with the kids, you know, as I was a child.
Wow.
So, yes, to answer your question, yes, absolutely, Canada was home. And I still maintain a citizenship in Canada, along with my fabulous American citizenship, and I also have citizenship in Lithuania. So I'm a trifecta winner.
You are. How did your mother, coming from I can't even pronounce it, Lithuania.
Lithuania.
Yeah, I need to brush my teeth. When she came to Canada, how did she adapt to it?
Well, she obviously adapted very well. Most Lithuanians have a very, very solid work ethic. And my father had learned to become a tailor before he left Lithuania. He learned how to sew, and my mother always knew how to sew a little. And so they both went to work for manufacturing concerns, Jewish manufacturers. And the one man that was so very, very dear to them would just hand them the keys because he knew how hard they worked, and would say, everybody did piecework then, the lapels and the stitching them did one thing, shoulder pads got something else, the tails got something else. You got paid differently, and they would come in and he would leave them the keys and say, come in and work. When you leave, lock the door, turn out the lights before you leave, and just write down how many pieces you did, and they'll be there anyway. And so they saved their money, and then, of course, bought property as soon as they could, and let the the tenants in half of it or a fourth of it pay the mortgage for them. They were very smart about that. And of course, I owe my entire career, Gary, to my kindergarten teacher when I was all of 3 and 4 years old and maybe going into 5, who said to my mother, "Your child is a little different from all the kids in my kindergarten classes. Give her lessons. Give her music lessons, piano lessons, dancing lessons, whatever you can afford to give her, because she's different." And my mother followed Mrs. Jackson's advice and gave me the lessons, which I hated because I hated any kind of practice. To this day, Gary, I'm not fond of rehearsal like most kids are. I like performing, but not getting ready for it. And my mom thought after some of my lessons that I was Lithuania's answer to Shirley Temple. And she didn't know anything about theater in New York, which was close to Montreal. She knew nothing about theater, but she did on occasion go to the movies. And therefore, like I said, she would say, "My daughter can do what Shirley Temple do." And that's how we wound up eventually coming to California and starting my career.
Now,
you go ahead.
Oh, is that something you wanted to do? Because sometimes, parents will influence. Like in my case, my mom wanted me to be either a priest, and I wanted to be president. I turned out to be a talk show host. But, did it influence you where you felt you had to, or is it you got the bug and you wanted to?
I think I came out of the womb dancing and singing and carrying on. And when it comes to your life, between priesthood and talk show host, you had to be a priest to do either one, I think. I think you have to have kind of smarts, and I think that the Almighty has tapped you on the shoulder and said, you have something to offer the world by talking to them and telling people what's going on in the world and how to make life a little better. And so I congratulate you. So in spite of the fact that you're not a priest, you are honoring that profession in what you do.
Well, thank you. And okay, you came in and you got in the United States. When did you get the acting bug to, actually go out and try to, get parts?
Well, I think, again, that, you see, God plays wonderful roles, mysterious roles in our lives. My mother would get me involved with the children's choir at the church that we went to, being Catholics like you. Then of course, she would write little funny sketches if she could, or think up something for me to do. And people heard about me, and so I was invited to come to Massachusetts and perform for the Lithuanians there. I was invited to New York and to Brooklyn to go and perform to the Lithuanian club or church or whatever it was there. So I was always working. And my dance teachers would have recitals, and so naturally I was in the recitals and showing off in my cute little costumes and my curly boubidou hair, But when we came to California, I think that I first started my very first television job. I worked in little theater while I was going to high school. And it's a wonder that I ever graduated, because I'd be doing a show at night and then rehearsing after the show and coming in immediately after school to the theater to rehearse and do whatever we had to do. But I loved it, and I would go out and do shows wherever we were invited, as high school kids to perform. And then my very first television job was for NBC, and I was an extra in something. But then my first really paid job came when I did the Burns and Allen show, and you're probably too young to remember.
George Burns.
Do you remember Burns and Allen?
Oh yeah, I'm a fanatic of watching old TV, and you know what? It was one of the groundbreaking TV shows.
Without a doubt, and I did it several times, and I was so nicely treated by Mr. and Mrs. Burns, Gracie Allen, and of course her husband George. And he became a very good friend of mine even after Gracie had died, because I was involved in the Thalians, which we will get to later, which is a group that was founded by young Hollywood people. He would come to my events, and when I invited him, and sit at my table and make me very proud to have the world famous and vaudeville legend, and movie legend and theater legend, George Burns, sit at my table was a great honor. And he would invite me to their home, even though I was a youngster, to those fancy cocktail parties that they would have around their Beverly Hills pool in their wonderful home. And I just always felt so special that I was included in part of their life. And it was a minor thing on their part, but it was awfully important to me. And it would be to anybody who was my age and so in love with show business and wanting to be a part of it. So that was my first job that got me my Screen Actors Guild card. And my first movie was one that you mentioned in my beautiful introduction, which was the world now famous 7 Brides for 7 Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
And in those days, Gary, we had to work 6 days a week. We didn't have the 2-day weekends like we now have. It was a 1-day weekend that we had. Sunday we had off. Saturday we still worked. But boy, what an experience that was, to be working with some of the greatest dancers in America, and to work with beautiful Jane Powell and of course the gorgeous, handsome Howard Keel, who was such a gentleman. I was at when he got his star on not the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but the Palm Springs Walk of Fame. I was one of the speakers, and I was so happy to be remembered in his life that many years after 7 Brides for 7 Brothers.
And that movie, too, they thought it was going to be a sleeper. And actually, at the same time, they were making another movie, which they put all that money in and famous actors. Yeah. And it turned out the movie you were in was not a sleeper.
Isn't that amazing? They truly didn't give 7 Brides any kind of big money. Of course, just making a movie took money, but not the kind of money, millions and millions, that go into making a movie now. And when you stop and think that you had Gene Kelly and Sid Charisse and Van Johnson in the other movie, whereas we just had Howard Keel and beautiful Janie Powell in ours. And, it was all done on the lot. They did go on location, and we didn't have to go. They shot up in Utah in the snowbanks, but all the snow coming down and everything else was done right on one of the stages, the number of which I can't remember now, but it was over, Esther Williams swimming pool.
Oh, really?
So when the snow came down, it went past us and around the wagons and into the swimming pool. It was quite an amazing experience. Oh, Hollywood movie magic. What wonderful memories I have.
And they had you promoting that all across the country, too. I heard you had to be in a bathing suit with an umbrella in the pouring down rain in one of them.
Yes. Well, they divided the country up into sections. Each one of us they didn't ask Janie, because she was, I think, doing another movie, but all the brides were sent out around the country. And I got from the Great Western Divide to the Pacific Ocean. And then they gave me all of Canada as well, because having been born in Canada, there was a connection. And the press people that were now in charge of running all of this and getting newspaper space and radio space, television wasn't that big a deal yet, came to me and said, my real name is Ruta, of course, which is Lithuanian, and it's a fragrant flowering herb that grows all over Lithuania. And it's the national symbol of Lithuania. Brides wear garlands of it in their hair when they're married. It's spun into every theater curtain, big, branches of it. And it's a very fragrant flowering herb that's used in medicines and in love potions, I'm happy to announce. So I wanted to keep Ruta. And they said, my real name is Ruta Kilmonis. Sounds Irish, doesn't it? Kilmonis?
A little
anyway,
bit.
They said, you'll never be a movie star with a name like Ruta Kilmonis. I said, oh, okay, well, what do you think? So everybody kicked around a lot of names and nothing sounded good. It was Ruta Annis and all sorts of names that came along and nothing sounded right. And then somebody said, Ruta Lee. Well, the diminutive, Gary, of Ruta in Lithuanian or Yiddish or Polish or Russian or German is Ruta Lee. So that sounded pretty good to me. Ruta Lee, that sounds pretty good. So that's how I became Ruta Lee. And I went all over the country using the name Ruta Lee. I mean, like you mentioned, there I went with an umbrella in the pouring down rain in Utah somewhere, or leaning against a cactus somewhere, or chewing tobacco with ball players in another city somewhere, anything that would make space to talk about Seven Brides, which was unheard of at that point. And finally, when the movie was released, a year later or 9 months later or whatever, somebody in the publicity department obviously forgot to mention it to whoever was doing the credits, and my name came out, Ruta Kilmonis. And all those people in Utah and Colorado and wherever I was were saying, who the hell was that girl that was here, that Ruta Lee, that said she was in the movie?
I also...
But
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I was saying God works in mysterious ways. When
it does.
I wanted to go to Lithuania, and that's another story that we will talk about, and I reached out and placed a call to Nikita Khrushchev because I had tried every which way. I wanted to go and see if my grandmother was alive or dead. I didn't know. When I got to Lithuania, and the story we'll leave for another time, it was so wonderful because they were thrilled to death that I had not changed my name, that a Lithuanian name like Ruta Kilmonis was on the screen. And so it stood me in very good stead with all the Lithuanian people that were part of show business.
Now, I heard when you called Khrushchev, you maybe were a little tipsy. Is that true?
Well, let me tell you how that happened.
I want to know.
Well, we've already promised each other that we'll have a little vodka together, right?
Right.
I had been trying to get my grandmother out of Siberia, where she was sent with my grandfather. Now, look, this was not the elite. This was not the highly educated. This was not the intelligentsia. These were not writers or teachers or authors. These were farm folk. They may have been considered richer than their neighbors because they had a cow. That's about it. And they were deported to Siberia. And why? Nobody could ever explain. I assume it was because they were trying to repatriate all the Eastern European countries that had been taken over by the communists. Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Yugoslavia, Romania, all of those places. And so I'm assuming that's why. And my grandfather, they were put in a cattle car and sent on I think it took 6 weeks for them to cross over into Siberia. My grandfather's legs were frozen on that cattle car, and when they took him off at one of the way stations and took off his boots, the flesh came off with the... And my grandmother didn't even know because she was forced to stay on the train that took them out.
They were treated.
And
They were treated as bad as the Nazis did, didn't they? Too, with the Jews.
Of course. But instead of camps where they would be sent to gas ovens, they were sent out into the snows of Siberia with just their own hands, no tools with which to cut trees or branches to find. They were set up in a barracks, a tin-roofed barracks. You can imagine in that cold what that was all about in Siberia. And my grandmother lived there for a long time, and we found her through the Red Cross. I was just a child. I was 9, 10 years old, and my mother was very persistent in trying to find her. And through the Red Cross, we discovered her in Siberia. And my mother started sending my mother packages. And that when we came to America, we continued sending packages. You could send 40 pounds, a pound of coffee, a pound of lard, a pound of bacon, a pound of tea, a pound of sugar, and it added up, and old clothes could be sent. And my mother, God love her, would take $10 bills and $5 bills and $100 bills and roll them very, very, very fine and sew them into the seams of clothes that she was sending. And try to explain that, if this doesn't look right, or the shoulder pads are popular in America but not necessarily in Lithuania, you can take them out. And eventually my poor grandmother hitchhiked across Siberia to another member of the family that had been deported as well to a different place. And eventually they were given permission to go back after 12 years or 15 years to Lithuania or stay in what they had built for themselves in Siberia. Well, of course, they chose to go back to Lithuania. Their property, of course, had all been distributed to the local commissars, the heavy-duty communists. And I had been writing, and finally my grandmother sent a letter back. She didn't write. She never went to school. And my mother only went to the 3rd grade, and my father, I think, to the 4th grade. But she sent a letter through another cousin, thanking us for all the things that we had sent, thanking us for the food packages that helped sustain them, thanking me for sending her the clothes to be laid out in, because, Gary, that was very important, to have the clothes to be laid out in your coffin in and buried in, And I didn't know. It took, anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks for a letter to get to us. So I had no idea whether my grandmother was alive or dead. And I went out with friends that night. Now, mind you, I had approached our president, I approached our congressman, I approached our senators, I approached everybody to help me try and get through to somebody in the Soviets so that I could go there. And it was no. Anyway, I went out with friends that night after reading this letter and finding my mother in a spate of tears. And the more wine they poured at dinner that night, the more logical it became that I should do something unusual and dramatic and try to get some attention. So I placed a person-to-person call. Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Person calls?
Yes.
For some of your listeners who don't know, it meant you paid twice as much for the call if you got through to your party, but if you didn't get your party, you didn't pay for the call, which was a good deal. And so I placed a person-to-person call in a slightly hazy, drunken stupor to Nikita Khrushchev, the Kremlin, Moscow, USSR. And that silly bitch, that's all I could call her, that was the operator, our American operator, said, "How do you spell Khrushchev?" Well, who the hell knows how to spell Khrushchev? Anyway, it was back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. No, niet, as the Russians say. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, I started calling the Russian embassy in Washington, because it would be 9 o'clock there. And I spoke to everybody from the upstairs maid to the window washer to the gardener. And again, niet. No. Finally, the Russian operator calls back and says, Mr. Khrushchev, no speak it English. You speak with his interpreter? And I said, yes, because I remembered there was a very attractive young man that traveled with Khrushchev when he was here, banging his shoe on the podium. And my father, who was fluent in Russian, used to laugh and say, what he interpreted is not what Khrushchev said. He made it palatable for our American ears, you know. And so I said, yes, I'll speak to him. And he said, oh, Miss Lee, we are so happy to talk to you. What can I do for you? And I said, I want to come to Lithuania to see if I can find my grandmother. I don't know if she's alive or dead. And what's more, I want to bring my mother and father, who have not seen Lithuania or their family since they left 35 years ago. And the State Department had told me, don't ever take your parents because they could be detained as primary citizens of the Soviet Union. And I thought, God is not going to be that unkind. I'm going to take a chance. And he said, oh, Miss Lee, that would be very nice. We'd love to have you. Why don't you talk to your senator about it? And I said, what in the hell does my senator have to do with my traveling in your country? This is not a matter of politics. This is a matter of the heart. And have a heart. I don't know if she's alive or dead. Help me. Well, I must have pushed the right button on this man, because he said to me, present yourself again in 30 minutes to the Russian embassy in Washington. And I thought, oh, hell, I'm going to get the runaround all over again. But I did as I was told. And this time when I called back, I was connected to the first secretary, who happened to be Lithuanian.
Oh, wow.
And to cut this long story just a little shorter, in 48 hours, my papers were signed, sealed, and delivered, and my mother and father and I got onto a Pan Am Airlines and flew to Moscow, and then from Moscow double-backed to Lithuania. And in a day or two, I was taken by big fancy car to Kaunas. Vilnius is the main city. Kaunas is the second largest city, where my darling grandmother had been miraculously moved from where she was told she was dying to the hospital in Kaunas. And Gary, the hospital was wonderful. The people were bonkers to see Americans. There we were, my mother and I in light furs, and it was February, and my father in a fur collared coat, and everybody was so wonderful, and the help was so good in the hospital. But listen to the kind of hospital it was. They didn't even have aspirin.
Wow.
That's the kind of system we can expect from the communists, who always make it sound like, oh, we're all going to be equal. Well, somehow there are certain communists who are always a little more equal. And it was an amazing experience to see Lithuania under those conditions, and to see how my family lived and how everybody was there and how grateful they were to have anything. I think the only thing that kept them warm was homemade hooch. You know, that was illegal, but that was it. And I'm stunned that they let me into the country, frankly, because I had made so many Voice of America broadcasts speaking about the horrors of communism and what it was doing to all of those countries that are now free. And please, God, do not let our youth here in America, who are so spoiled and feel so entitled to freedom that other people have fought for, and don't even entertain the thought of communism. And of course, socialism is the first rung of that ladder that leads you to communism. So I feel very, very strongly about asking God to keep smiling on us, even though we don't always deserve it.
Yeah. Now, boy, our time is just, you're so interesting, and our time is almost up. I got to ask you a couple. Unless you want to talk a little bit longer. I mean, I have you booked to 8 o'clock. We can go a little bit longer if you want.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll go a little
Well,
longer.
to
if
my
you don't mind,
to my
I
producer.
just hope your listeners aren't saying, "Oh, get off."
No, JC, get a hold of our next guest and move it out a half an hour. Okay.
If you can. Don't worry about it, my darling. We'll do whatever you want.
Yeah, another question I have for you. What happened on Gunsmoke, which was one of my favorite shows? Still is. I still watch it every day. But what happened with James Arnaz with you?
I was just on recently. Somebody sent me a letter saying that they watched me yesterday on a Gunsmoke. I did several of them. But the one that I will remember till the day I die was I was playing a little tramp, a vixen, and Miss Kitty had sort of taken me and was dealing with me until they could put me somewhere. And I coaxed the darling Marshall into my bedroom, which was behind a heavy curtain, on a rod, very heavy velvety curtain. And I was sort of coaxing him into my bedroom and my bed, and he picked up a heavy quilt and threw it over my head, threw me over his shoulder, on his right shoulder, and with his left hand, he swung the curtain back to get it out of the way so that we could exit my bedroom and he could dump me in Miss Kitty's room. And as he swung me and my head into the door frame. And out I went like a light. And there I was. I came to on the floor with James holding my hand, rubbing my cheeks, putting ice on my head, and saying, "Oh, thank God, I didn't kill you. Thank God I didn't kill you."
What type of person?
And they sent me home early because I was a little bit dingy that day.
What type of
the hit on the head?
What type of person was James?
Oh God, he was lovely. He was such a gentle man. And there's this great big huge guy, and he was just a remarkably lovely man. And I don't know, do most of your listeners know that he was the Thing in that marvelous sci-fi movie? He was the cat. Do you remember that movie? It was a great movie.
That was his first acting, wasn't it?
It's overgrown carrot, I call it.
Yeah.
He was the monster, and no, I don't think too many people ever realized that the Marshal was the Thing. Boy, that was a good movie. I just love that.
I think that was his first acting career gig too, in a movie. But it's still a scary movie when you watch it today. I'll be honest with you.
Oh, so beautifully done and so beautifully directed, and boy, I really loved it. But I write about that in my book, which for your audience is still selling very nicely, I'm very happy to say. And it's called Consider Your Ass Kissed. And for everybody who goes into a panic about, can you say the word ass? I thought, well, if Jesus can ride into Jerusalem on his ass, I can kiss it.
Well, another show that you were on, Gomer Pyle, Jim Neighbors. I met him once when he was up here in Seattle years and years ago. And nice
him.
Guy.
Very, very nice guy. He became a long-term friend of mine. And, I visited him several times in Hawaii. He lived in Hawaii later on. And we did events together here and there to raise money for transplants and all of that, because that saved his life, And I just thought he was one of the nicest people I've ever known. And I miss him, let's put it that way. And, he was a remarkably brilliant singer. Not everybody got to see him sing on television, but he had a big tenor operatic voice, which was just amazing. And what a darling guy. You know, I've just been so blessed that I got to make friends with so many of these marvelous people that have colored our lives with humor and style and pizzazz and great talent. And to think that someone like Lucille Ball was my good friend, that Phyllis Diller was my good friend, there are just so many wonderful people. Lucy's daughter, Lucy Arnaz, is my good friend and has a house near mine in Palm Springs. So we see each other. And, let me I'm going to get rid of this call.
Okay.
It's going to keep ringing. Hang on, I'll just tell them.
Okay. We're going to be right back with her. That was fast.
Okay. That's it.
Well, Lucille Ball. What's this about polka dots? She liked polka dots, and you liked polka dots, didn't you?
Sure did. They were her favorite pattern of any kind, and she loved them. And the first day that I met her was at a racetrack in Del Mar, and I had never met her. Of course, I was a fan. Everybody was a fan. And she and Desi always were horse people. He loved the ponies, you know. And I had been taken to the track by a lovely man, Hunt Stromberg, whose father was one of the big wheels at NBC. And she loved my dress. And so I was aware that from then on I could always find something with polka dots for her. And Lucy, excuse me, Lucy used to love my jewelry too. And she'd borrow stuff from me. And I would have to call her because months would go by and I wouldn't get it back. And I'd have to call her and say, can I borrow back my jewelry that you borrowed from me? She was a great gal. God, I loved her. I really, really loved her.
Yeah, she was like, when it comes to comic originally when she started acting, they didn't want her as a comic, comic side, but she fit into it, and that's how it ended up. But I mean, she was going to be a leading lady.
That's right. She was. I mean, all of her stuff was very serious stuff. And finally, when they did her hair, my very good friend Donnell Dadigan owns the Hollywood Museum, which is housed in the very prestigious symbol of Hollywood, which is the Max Factor building, across the street from Hollywood High, where I went to school. When I finally got out of convent and went to a public school, it was to Hollywood High. And it was great fun because I'd ride on the school bus with the children of, oh my God, I suddenly did a blank on their names, David and Ricky Nelson, the Nelsons.
Oh, yeah.
And anyway, Lucy became a redhead in the Factor building, and Marilyn became a platinum blonde in the Factor building. And it's a great place to visit. I don't know if you've ever been to the Hollywood Museum, but Gary, if you come this way, you let me know. We'll go to the Hollywood Museum. It is such fun to look at pictures from the silent era all the way through, and memorabilia and the rooms that these beauties became even more beautified in. It's sensational. I suggest everybody go to the Hollywood Museum when you can.
Lucille Ball, her and her husband really perfected TV. I mean, they used, 4 cameras, and then what they used to do is, before it was all done, and it just didn't look right but they would actually use 4 cameras. Then after they got done filming it, they would actually send it overnight to the West Coast.
Yes, exactly right. And the 4-camera system is still the loveliest way to work because you work in front of a live audience. So the laughs are not canned laughs. They are just fabulous in that you get the real laughter and you get the wonderful comic timing, and you hope to God that the casting department has sent people that know how to work in front of an audience, that know how to hold for a laugh, and don't just go right through, And Lucy was wonderful about that. Lucy was not at all, Lucille Ball was not at all Lucy on the television show. Not that dingbat, crazy, darling lady. Well, she was darling, but there was nothing crazy or dingbat about her. She was very serious about her craft, and she admired and loved people that did their homework and came in knowing their stuff and knowing how to work in front of a camera. It's not easy. For some of your listeners who don't understand what I mean by a 4-camera system, that means that you choreograph your moves in a scene like you do a ballet, because with 4 cameras going, one is a close-up on me, one is a close-up on you, the other one is a medium shot, and the other one is a distance shot. And you have to not walk into the line of the other camera's angle. You have to be very careful of that. So it's almost like learning a ballet dance to choreograph a scene. But boy, it sure feels good when you're doing it rather than just playing to camera, because a camera you don't get laughs from. A live audience, you hear laughs, you feel them, you have the breathing, you have the warmth, you have the laughter, you have the giggles, you have the tears of an audience to play off of, as well as your scene, So I love a 4-camera system.
Well, another thing people don't realize too, when they were doing their show, that her husband, went to the network and said, "Hey, I want the rights." And they looked at him and said, "The rights to what?" "I want the rights." And and that's how they got to the rebroadcast it, and that was the very first time that it was ever done. Any of the shows before that, they didn't know the actors; they never had the rights to it.
He was absolutely so ahead of his time in thinking about that, and in buying the studio. The old RKO studio became Desi Lou. All those RKO movies that were shot there. And he was marvelous at that. He was a bit of a womanizer, obviously, which is what led to the divorce eventually. And but he had such smarts. And Lucy was of great heart, because when this series was being talked about and being done at CBS or wherever it was, I think it was CBS. They didn't want Desi. They didn't want Desi as the leading man. And she said, "No, either he does it or I don't." That's that. So I used to, go to Lucy's house a lot because she loved game playing. She loved Scrabble. She loved charades, and people like Carol Burnett and Carol Cook and Tom Troop and different people. We'd all go over to play. And I went to Lucy Arnaz's wedding there, her first wedding, before she married Larry Luckenbill. And Desi was there, of course, to walk Lucy down the aisle in Big Lucy's backyard, their house originally. And Lucy was then married to a wonderful comic, Gary... oh boy, I'm doing a blank on his name. You probably know. Anyway, he was a real wardrobe man. I mean, he loved to dress, and he was just always decked out in finery and had huge walk-in closets with mirrored doors and all of that, glass doors. And Desi walked in, and of course, the great clothier to the stars at the time here in Hollywood was Cy DeVore. I don't know if that name sounds familiar, but you'll see it on the screen. He did all of Frank Sinatra's tuxedos and Dean Martin's and Sammy's and everybody's. And he walked into the closet to sort of powder his nose and to walk his daughter down the aisle. And he said, "Well, shoot, what is this? Side Divor West? That was, yeah, well, of course, he made us all laugh, and he was wonderful. But I'm so sorry that marriage fell apart, because they were an extremely viably wonderful couple in Hollywood. And, well, Lucy remained at the top of the heap forever. And I just love her for bringing me into her life and keeping me in it. It was great.
Well, you know what? We need to take about a 4.5-minute break. And, Ruta, when we come back, I got a lot more questions and more things. So, Okay, so we'll be back with Ruta right after this break. Again, you're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. We'll be back in about 4.5 minutes, so stay tuned.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. Magic drug restores lost memories and unleashes hidden knowledge. An FDA-approved asthma drug, some are calling magic, has shown the ability to restore lost memories and reveal previously hidden knowledge. A similar recovery of seemingly inaccessible memories was also demonstrated using optogenetic therapy. But the relatively safe drug is non-invasive and equally successful. If proven effective, this novel approach could offer a new ray of hope for millions suffering from conditions like dementia and Alzheimer's. Or simply help everyday people remember critical elements of their lives lost to the passage of time. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Are you into the paranormal? Then you have found the right place. Night Dreams covers the topics you want to hear, and Gary always has a great guest to take you for a real ride in talk radio. So, buckle up and let's go for that ride with Gary.
And we are back with Ruta. Are you still there?
I sure am, honey, and I'm still fascinated by the first news report that talked about the black holes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm captivated by all of that stuff.
Well, you should listen to my show sometime. I got to ask you a question. Another favorite show of mine was the Andy Griffith Show. And you appeared in that.
Yours and America's, I think, you know. Yes, I appeared in it several times, I'm very happy to say. Once I appeared as a sort of a movie star lady that was great fun, and supposedly having a romance with the sheriff, which was not so. But the one that I really loved was the one where I gave Don Knotts a lot of trouble as to be a little college gal, you know. And God, what fun it was to be on that show.
What was he
and
like?
He played the guitar, the banjo, and everything else, and every 5 minutes between takes, you know, he'd grab the instrument, start singing, and we'd all be singing along with him. It was a great fun to work on the show. I loved it, absolutely loved it. And, you know, it's what we were talking about earlier. These were fun, lovely shows that adults loved, that youngsters loved, that in-between people loved, that old people loved. They were just a blessing to every household, instead of the so much garbage that we're getting nowadays that is supposed to be sophisticated, I guess. I just don't see it that way, but I'm a very old-fashioned girl, let's put it that way.
Well, you know, again, like I said at the beginning of the show, you know, I'm not into zombies tearing, you know, people apart, and I'm not into, you know, aliens and all this stuff. TV is not what it was. I mean, you know, it had values to, you know, the shows of the past, which we have lost. In the mid-'60s, it started shifting, and that was bad.
I totally agree with you, and I just I don't quite understand why the shock value of something is supposed to work. It's no longer shocking, and I just find the language that's being used is horrendous. And I'm no prude, you know. We're saying talking like a sailor. Hell, they talk very nicely now compared to what our kids are speaking in the streets. And I find that a lot of this comes from hearing it all the time on television.
Yeah, that's what I'm really worried about. Young kids in the next 20 years, are we going to have a lot of murderers, killers going around because they grew up watching that? I mean, you know, back in the day when they had like the Mod Squad and all those type of shows, right? You didn't ever saw blood, you know, or even like Westerns. How often did you see a Western? Gunsmoke, did you ever see anybody bleed? They didn't show it.
The whole point is the children played with guns from the time we were itty-bitty babies up, and there were not the problems that we have now. And it's not because you and I are out there killing people. I don't understand. I don't understand what's happening. It's just nobody took the guns away from us as kids, and we didn't do harm to anybody with our guns, whether they were made out of wood or clay or the real thing. We never hurt anybody.
And what would, then you were on Love American Style?
Oh, many times, yes. I once got a job. My best girlfriend was Barbara Stewart, who was married to Dick Gautier, who was Birdie on Broadway in Bye Bye Birdie. And I went in for the reading to meet up with the producers, and I got the job of Dick's wife because Barbara didn't look like the real thing, even though she was. She didn't get the job. I got it. I just love that. And then I went in one time and to see the producer, and the role called for, the author had written a Ruta Lee type. And I went in and said, well, I presume that this is going to be my role. And they said, no, you're too much on the nose.
That is interesting. And you did other shows like Perry Mason. What was Raymond Burr like to work with?
What a lovely man. I'll tell you, I loved just about everybody I ever worked with. There was one young man that I worked with that I was not crazy about because he was just beginning, but he was so full of himself, and his name was Rod Lauren. And if he's listening anywhere, he'll probably kill me now. But he was just not my favorite person in the world, only because he was just so full of himself. And he's the only person I can think of that left me just a little cool. Because, when you're working on the set with somebody, it's hard work. Everybody thinks, oh, you stand in front of a camera and you say your words and that's it. It's exceedingly hard work because you probably know, but not all your listeners do, that if we have this scene of where you and I are talking on radio now and on our phones, there's a close-up of me, then a long shot of me that has to be shot, and the close-up of you and the long shot of you that has to be shot. And you have to repeat exactly the same thing, not just saying the same thing, but putting your hands in the same place, up to your forehead, or putting down the phone, or picking it up, or moving, or sliding in your chair. Everything has to match every time you do it. That's not easy. It's never easy to do that. I feel sorry for the poor woman who has to keep track of who did what in the script at what time. Most actors try to remember what they did and how they did it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. But it's not easy. So I salute all my fellow actors and the people that have given me so much pleasure because I got to work with them, like your friend, wonderful Jimmy Garner, or like, you name it. I mean, I got to work with these great people.
That's the trouble with a lot of actors nowadays. They if somebody wants their autograph, they really are put off by it. Like Jimmy, for example, he would go out of his way. If somebody wanted an autograph, he would even spend time. He actually spent a lot of time talking to me. I'll tell you that. He's one. I remember when he was doing his Rockford Files.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was out filming, and I called there and he recognized my name and he dropped everything he was doing and he spent a half an hour talking to me. He goes, well, I got to get back and, finish the scene here.
Yes, I was thinking that probably the assistant director was probably wetting his pants trying to get him back on the set, But God bless him. He was a gentleman's gentleman, and I just loved him. And I talked about my friend Barbara Stewart, who played Miss Muddy on Gomer Pyle.
Mm-hmm.
She was at one point engaged to Jimmy Garner, and her mother never forgave her for breaking it off. She wanted Maverick in her life. I just adored him. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say Hogan Heroes, too. You were on a couple episodes of that, too. What was it like working with Crane, Bob Crane?
It was one big laugh after another. The assistant directors would have a hard time getting everybody to calm down because everybody was a comedian on that show. They were all so wonderfully funny. And so we had a great time. And of course, I loved it because every time I did, I think 3 or 4 of the shows, and every time that I played a different character. One time I was a Russian person, another time I was a British spy, another time I was a French doctor, another time I was an American, I think. So I got to play all kinds of accents, which was great. And that's where my Lithuanian background really stood me in good stead, because I was used to hearing Russian, Lithuanian, Polish, all those wonderful foreign accents. I write a lot about it in the book, and I hope that your listeners will go to Amazon.com, which is the quickest way to get it. Of course, I always feel like all those poor people that had to go out of business because of COVID, and the small bookshops would be the places to visit and say, order it for me. It might be easier. But Amazon, it'll be delivered the next day. So please do pass that on to your listeners.
And the name of the book
is Consider Your Ass Kissed. And the reason of that title is because it's an expression that I've used. As you know, Debbie Reynolds and I were the head mothers of the Thalians, which is basically Hollywood for mental health. And we raised millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then one day someone came to me and said, Ruta, you're missing the boat. I know that you're involved with mental health from pediatric through geriatric research and care, but you are not doing anything for the returning veterans. So we joined with UCLA's Operation Mend, and they take care of the broken and fractured bodies of our returning veterans, and we Thalians take care of the broken and fractured mind and spirit. And so I'm very, very proud of what we did. And I started to tell you a story, and now I forgot where I was going with it, but I got carried away. Oh dear.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Go right ahead.
Can we take a call or two where
Sure.
one of the listeners could ask you a question? So that
I'd love it. I love it.
Now, wasn't Hogan Heroes filmed on Desi lot?
Let me think about this. Was it Desilu or was it General Service? Ooh, I think you might be right, and yet somehow I don't feel like it was. Maybe it was part of the time. I worked with Werner Klemperer in a movie where he played the movie was called Operation Eichmann, but he played Eichmann. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you.
Okay.
I was going to tell you that Consider Your Ass Kissed came from my very good friend who is ABC television reporter and the red carpet man, does all the events, George Pinocchio. And George, of course, has heard me say, Consider Your Ass Kissed to all of the wonderful people that have given me money for the Thalians, whether they gave me $5 or $500 or $500,000. What could I do but say, please consider your darling ass kissed for doing this for me and doing this for our veterans. And so he said, if ever you finish the book that you've been writing for 10 years, that's the title. That's what it should be. And I took him seriously, and boy, I love it.
Well, it's a title of a book you won't forget. Yeah.
Like I said, Jesus rolled into Jerusalem on his ass.
Now, Lucy, how did she take losing the studio, out of curiosity? Because I know that she put her whole heart into that.
I don't remember any huge uproar about it. I think that she got on with her life. She eventually married Gary Morton. She went to New York. She did a play. Well, she did the play before she married Gary. It was while she was there that she married him. And Jack Carter, wonderful comedian Jack Carter, and his wife were stood up with them when they were married. And Gary was a friend of Jack's. And I never felt like she missed one damn thing in life. She certainly didn't need the money. Let's put it that way. And whatever happened with losing the studio, she didn't lose it. They sold it, you know. So there you are. And I can't remember. It kept being called Desi Lou for a long time, even after they weren't there. And then I can't remember what it was called after that. And, you know, it adjoined Paramount. You walked off the Paramount lot onto the RKO lot, which became Desi Lou.
Interesting.
It was all one place.
Of all the TV shows and movies you appeared in, what was your favorite?
Wow. That's hard to say. I love them all, but I have to tell you that one that really stands out in my mind is The Twilight Zone. I love Twilight Zone. Well, you know that I'm sort of into the whole mystery of the universe and how vast it is and how it is incomprehensible to our small peanut-sized brains compared to what there must be out there in the universe. But I loved that. I played a real nasty little tramp who married an older man, and then his brother, who was a doctor. It was called a short drink from a certain fountain. And it had to do with this older man that she's married to that she razzes and teases terribly and puts down because he's old and not able to keep up with her. And he gets younger and younger and younger and younger. And I won't give you the ending because I'd like people to see it one of these days. They run all the time on the big revivals that they do. I think every year there's kind of a festival of Twilight Zones.
Oh, I know.
And I love those. And every big star in town did a piece at some time or other on Twilight Zone.
Yeah, did you ever, out of curiosity, a friend of mine, Robert Culp, did you ever meet him?
Oh, sure. I met him, and he used to go with a friend of mine, and so we'd see each other occasionally out for dinner or drinks or whatever, and we did a trip to Mexico together, a junket of some kind. I can't remember. I think it was for Hollywood Squares because I used to regular on Squares. And we had a grand time together, and I really, really liked him. I liked him very much. He used to go at that time with a songwriter and Academy Award music writer. Carol Connors was her name.
Yeah.
And she started in Philadelphia as a little singer and did very well for herself.
It was a big loss when he passed. I was talking to him a week before he passed. He was so excited.
Really?
Yeah, he was so excited that he got the funding. He was going to make a movie in Hong Kong, and his daughter was, going to be involved with it. And he was so excited. He finally secured the funding to make the movie. And a week later, he was out for his walk, and he passed.
Oh, he was a darling guy. I really liked him. Speaking of talking to someone before he died, just about 5 days before Alex, my best buddy, Alex Trebek, of course I'm talking about, died, we had dinner. I was best friends with his current wife and his former wife, and they were best friends. And we were all at dinner at his former wife's house, just 5 of us, just a few days before he died. And Alex was such a darling guy. I loved working with him. I loved having him as one of my best friends. And Alex did the foreword to my book, to Consider Your Ass Kissed, and he's on the back cover of it.
Yeah, I heard
we did
that.
High Roller.
Now, we only got about 5 minutes left. I got to ask you a question because we do cover the strange, we cover conspiracies, the paranormal. I bring on actors and we interview them. And we had Bob Mackey. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a famous country singer.
I'm very familiar with him, very familiar. And I saw him not a few days ago. Well, no, a couple of weeks ago now. And I know him and love him and have used and have worn his costumes many times.
Well, I got to ask you a question. Have you ever had any paranormal or weird experiences?
I have, and in fact, I write about them in my book. So you must get a hold of my book, darling, and read the chapter about this. I had 3 experiences that proved to me that there is something mystical, magical, whether you call it guardian angels or something. But one time I was coming home from the studio, from Desi Lou, in fact. And I was very late, and I had a date to go to a black tie event at the Hilton Hotel. I think it was the Screen Directors Guild Awards or something. I can't remember. And it was a rainy day. And I raced home, and I said, I'll meet you there, because I was going to be late. And I raced up and put on a gown and threw on my makeup and threw myself into the car and got down to the bottom of my driveway. And there was no traffic, nothing stopping me. I sat there. Something made me sit at the bottom of my driveway for like a minute or 2. It felt like a century, but it probably wasn't very long at all. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go now. And just before I started to make a right turn, a 15-foot wall collapsed onto where my car would have been had I not sat at the bottom of my driveway.
Wow.
One time I was at the studio at Warner Brothers. And we usually have chairs with our name in them, but I was visiting on somebody else's set. And the director had said to me, use my chair, I'm busy on the set. And I was sitting in his chair watching the scene taking place. It might have been a Maverick, I can't remember now. And as I was sitting there, I said, I shouldn't be sitting in this chair. I should move. I should move. Now, the director had offered the chair to me. And I got up and I moved, and as I moved, a Klieg light fell off of one of the grids up above, 100 feet above, and smashed down into the chair, wiping it out.
Wow, you could have been killed.
Another time, I was on the set of the San Bernardino Civic Light Opera, and I was doing the South Pacific, playing Nellie Forbush in South Pacific. And there's a number in the second act called Honey Bun. 101 pounds of fun. That's my little honey bun. And, big sailor suit outfit with the big tie. And Honey Bun is played by Luther Billis with coconuts for a bra and a grass skirt and army boots, and so on and so forth. And we do this big song and dance number. And I'm panting from it when I come off because you're supposed to hear my voice over the loudspeaker in the next scene. And I'm lying on the coffee table, which is rolled out. The whole set was rolled out of the Emile de Becq set that's coming up, the plantation scene. And I'm lying on the table, breathing hard, catching my breath so that I can do what I have to do on the radio, on the microphone, I should say. And I'm looking up and I see sandbags, that are the counterweights for the curtains that go up and down and all of that, swaying softly in the breeze. Now, I had been lying there every day looking at that, at that point in the show, catching my breath. Something told me to get up. And as I got up, a sandbag came down and smashed the coffee table to smithereens, and it would have smashed me to smithereens.
Wow. Hey,
I'm a big believer in listen to your inner voice. Listen to whatever it is, whether it's guardian angels, whether it's God himself or herself, as the case may be, whatever it is, whether it's your instinct, if it's, something that's built into you, pay attention. Don't ignore it.
That is good advice. Well, hey, Ruta, our time is up. I want to thank you so much for coming on. And don't tell anybody, but I had a crush on you in Hogan Heroes when you used to put that Russian accent on. I had a crush on you.
That's very funny. I'm looking at a picture of Bob and myself right now, and I'm in that Russian drag. Thank you. Thank you for being in love with me. I'm in love with you. And I so look forward to hearing more of your shows. And thank you for letting me visit with all your listeners. May God smile on you, and may God smile on America.
And I will have that, that bio sent over to your agent, and you can do what you want with it.
Please, you know how to find me. If ever you come in this direction, give me a buzz, and I'll take you over to the Hollywood Museum.
Okay. You take care, and you have a great weekend, okay?
Happy New Year, everybody.
Okay, Ruta, you take care and have a good night.
Bye-bye, darling.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, we got a second guest coming on. We're going to be talking about Bigfoot. So stay tuned. We're going to be right back. So don't go anywhere. It could get really hairy.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the Strange News. Discovery of shipwreck off New York coast may be linked to the legendary SS Savannah. The discovery of a large piece of what appears to be shipwreckage drifted ashore on Fire Island near Long Island, New York, following a series of intense storms on the East Coast. The piece is believed to be part of the legendary SS Savannah, famous as the first steamship to cross the Atlantic Ocean. If it is true, then a fine piece of history has been uncovered, allowing researchers and experts to get a clearer image of the history of both the vessel and the area. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Nice used previously enjoyed vehicles. Come on down to We Fleece 'em You Motors, a division of Dewey, Cheatham & Howe, where we treat all of our customers like family.
Dad?
Shut up, I'm working here.
Sorry.
Now then, all of our previously enjoyed used vehicles might even have an engine. And if you're asking about our warranty, we've got a warranty so ironclad, we fail to see any reason to put it in writing. And at We Fleece 'em You Motors, we stand by our unwritten warranty, no matter how long it takes for you to give up. So come on down to We Fleece 'em You Motors, formerly Miracle Motors, where if it runs, it's a miracle. Ooh. If you can find a better looking car, I'll eat a bug. Hurry, hurry, hurry on down and get that dream car that runs in your dreams. We're located at 727 Paymore Fleecem Avenue, next to Great Fleecem Bank. Police not welcome. Broadcasting to you live in his underwear. Sorry. From the studios of Night Dreams Talk Radio, you're listening to Gary Anderson. He's the bomb.
The size of nuclear bombs today has evolved from the 1960s so that they are smaller but more accurate.
Hey, are we talking about weapons or Gary?
Even if the total megatonnage was actually less, the explosive force would be spread out more efficiently across the metropolitan area. So in that case, the actual destruction would be even greater than what I'm about to describe now.
Yeah, we're talking about Gary. On the radio, on the internet, and in worldwide syndication. Get ready for the ride of your life.
The destruction that I'm about to describe is likely an underestimation of what would actually happen. It still gives an adequate sort of approximation of the effects. So here we go.
Here's Gary.
And here I am. And I did have a crush on her, JC.
I know you did. A lot of people did. Listen, that lady, she was a good-looking lady who was on a lot of shows.
A lot. I remember the one with the Andy Griffith show. One of she was romantically kind of involved with him, with the Sheriff Taylor. And it kind of broke the relationship because, well, she loved going out and target shooting. And he, the sheriff and her went out and he was, cocky, showing how great he could shoot, right? And then she just creamed him.
Yeah, she put him in his place. For sure.
Yeah. Great interview. I really enjoyed it. We learned a lot. Can you imagine she had the balls to call Khrushchev?
Yeah, she's persistent till she got through it. And she did it in the heart of the Cold War. Yeah.
And can you believe even the hospitals didn't even have aspirin?
You're in a rough spot when they don't even have aspirin.
Yeah, well, you know how they got rid of your headache, don't you?
Yeah, with an axe.
No, they took you against a brick wall and shot you. That's how you got rid of your headache in Russia at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they were taking people and putting them in cattle cars and sending them way out.
Oh, yeah. Listen, let me tell you something. You're right. They did a lot of stuff bad, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's our guest next, and what are we going to be talking about?
Hey, our next guest is Bill Rigby. He's the founder of Agents of the Unexplained, and his podcast, Bill, he has seen UFOs, ghosts, and Bigfoot within 15 feet of himself, and he has been researching everything cryptid and paranormal for years, but has been doing so more exclusively over the last 3 years, and you can find him on Facebook and on the Agents of the Unexplained YouTube channel.
Well, Bill, welcome to the show. How are you doing this Friday night?
I am doing great, Gary. How are you doing?
Fine till we start talking about Bigfoot, because I had an experience. I hear you had one kind of close up.
Yeah, about 15 feet away from me. And it was an experience because I didn't think this old man could run fast backwards without falling down, but I kind of did.
So you ran too. When I had my encounter up in the Canadian Rockies, and it chased us for about 2.5 miles till we got back to the car. It was one of the most scariest experiences I ever had. And you know what? Some people claim that they give off orbs and they can telecommunicate, or they're kind of like not real. They're interdimensional, but I didn't see that. What was your experience?
Well, I was actually at a camp out it was a Bigfoot camp out at Salt Fork State Park at the group camp area. And it was 2.5 years ago, August. And we went around checking the area out. And then two of my friends, we decided we're going to hike down the Buckeye Trail. We'll just go so far, stop, listen. Yeah, it's dusk, just getting dark. And we went in about 90 paces, stopped, looking around. A couple little stones or nuts came up from the right side of us. The left side, coming up and hitting right near us. I'm thinking, someone messing with us. We go in another 90 paces or so and stop, look, listen, and same thing. coming, just a couple of them. Deb, the lady that was walking with us, she said, I'm getting scared. It's fine. Come on. So we move up again. And Mike, the guy that was with us, he was carrying a gun. So
he was smart.
Yeah, I'll say. Well, we got like the third 90 paces, and Deb says, I'm scared. I ain't going no farther. I said, well, just stay there. Give me that scope. I'll go down and check it out, see if I can see anything or whatever. Well, I go down about 90 paces. I kneel down on one knee, and I start scoping, adjusting the scope, looking down the trail. I turned and looked. Right inside the wood line, which is about 15 feet from me, there was one leaning there looking at me. And I about filled my pants.
Yeah, well, I did mine. I got to ask you a question. What did it look like? What do you remember what it appeared to look like?
Well, more of a ape-type features in the face, but it had a human boxer nose. If you know what I mean by boxer nose, it means you got punched too many times.
Yeah.
And it was kind of flattened out. It was dark brown hair, but the skin seems darker brown, the skin I saw. And as a hunter and an outdoorsman all my life, I knew better than stare a predator down eye to eye. So I can't really tell you what the eyes look like. But I noticed that all the muscles on it, and the shoulders, the arms, the chest, and I keep telling everyone, Arnold Schwarzenegger had been impressed with it.
I bet.
And I stood up. It stood up. But I noticed about how high up on the tree it was next to. And it was right. I'm like, okay, I got this. I start running backwards, back to Mike and Debbie. And I'm yelling for them to shine their lights down there just so they make sure they can see it, because it's right inside the wood. It's getting dark. And Debbie keeps looking to the left because she's scared what's tossing the stones or the little nuts up at us. And so finally Mike understood what I said when I got close to him, and he hit his big bright light. And I go, you see it? You see it? And he goes, yeah, I saw Bigfoot's rear, but he used profanity, going down over the hill. I looked down and went, really? He goes, yeah. He was running down over the hill. I saw him. I went, oh, okay. Which kind of brought my paranoia down. But one thing to understand about me, I've never ran from a fight. Never. I was never afraid of nothing, ever. I might have got startled a couple of times, but I was never afraid. And that made me run backwards.
Well, when I had my encounter, it nothing in this world has scared me as much, because and I don't know how you saw it run or move, but in my case, it was going across a creek up in the Canadian Rockies where an old Japanese internment camp was. And when I saw it run, and believe me, I didn't turn my head around very much after that. My life was, I felt, in danger. And I was with a friend of mine.
I believe that.
And I noticed it was running, Bill, between 2 legs and 4 legs to gain speed. Now, I don't know if they do that all the time, but I can tell you, it really scared me.
So it actually went down using its arms to help catapult itself.
Well, I guess for speed,
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, well, did you take a good look at it? Because I was out there, we were taking pictures, and people are saying to me, in the past, why didn't you take, well, I'm not going to, when you see something, I thought
to do that.
Your brain doesn't work that way.
No.
You got one thought in your mind is to get the hell out of there.
I've been asked several times, well, did you get a picture? No. 15 feet away, all I'm thinking about is I'm dead.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. But yours was farther back charging you.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate this thing wasn't that way, or I wouldn't be here talking right now.
Well, I got to ask you another question, because you cover Bigfoot a lot. I only talk about it a couple times a month with guests, but why is it? Now, I've been also doing talk radio for going on 52 years now, by the way, but I've been an avid photographer since I was 5 years old when my grandmother gave me her first camera. And I tell you what really bugs the you-know-what out of me is every picture of Bigfoot. I don't care if it's trail cam, or there's somebody's cell phone or a camera, it's always out of focus.
No. I've seen in focus pictures.
I haven't seen many.
They actually came out of Conshohocken, Ohio. I've seen them, the pictures.
Now, I've seen some that were in focus, but they were, because again, I go into Photoshop, I look for certain things, I find, just like UFOs, I find a lot of people fake them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But no, this man's out all the time, and believe me, he got blob squatches.
Wow.
Seeing the really good pictures.
Then why?
The ape farm that he goes to, he calls it that, the ape farm. And I'm supposed to go there with them one of these days, and it's just getting able to meet up with them to do it. It's going to be an awesome thing to do.
It sounds like it, but why then, if we got proof of pictures, then why aren't the scientists, why aren't the people taking it more serious? They keep saying, they really don't exist. But, if you go back in time, the American natives, going back hundreds of years, there's been reports of Bigfoot. Another thing, have you ever heard of Bigfoot shifting over to a wolf?
No. I never heard that one. I heard they shape-shifted. I heard they jumped through portals. I don't know. What I saw appeared to be flesh and blood. Did it go down over the hill and jump through a portal? I don't know. I didn't see it. I'm not going to say, yes, that's what they do. Anyone says that's how they do it, I know that's how they do it, it's full of bull.
Well, there's I'm not going to say who he is, but there's a person up here in Washington State, that claims that they can telecommunicate and you can talk to them with your brain, and you can summon. I don't know if I buy that. What's your feeling?
Something I do when I go in my research area. If I go in by myself, I talk out loud saying, hi, it's me. I'm here just to check things out, be here. I'm not going to cause no harm. I'm your friend. And I go in. And the one time that I didn't do that by myself, I get almost down the trail to where I turn and go through the woods, across a gully, and another half a mile or so deeper into the woods. As I was getting up to where that point is for me to turn, and there's like a brush field right here before I get up to the wood line. There was a loud knock, like a tree just was hit right next to me by another big tree. And I felt like anger type situation there being floated toward me. And I started apologizing and saying, it's me, it's me, it's me. I'm sorry, a lot on my mind, which there was at that point. I should have announced myself to you that I'm here. I'm very, very sorry. And I stood there for a couple minutes, and I'm like, all right, I feel like I can go ahead, because I trust my gut whenever I'm in the woods. If I get a bad feeling, I'm out of there. Well, I go on in and go over to where I usually sit. Now, I see squirrels. I see birds. I hear birds. I was in there for over an hour. I didn't hear or see nothing. Everything was totally quiet. And for once, in my own experience, everything goes quiet when the predator is around.
Yeah, that's not normal unless something is there to quiet.
And I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm out. And I get up and I walk out saying, I'm sorry I angered you guys. I really am. Please forgive me. I'm leaving now. I get out to the trail and start up the trail to my vehicle, which was a half mile or so up. And all of a sudden I start seeing birds and hearing them. It's like, really? You guys were so mad at me, you kept everything away. And when I'm in the woods, that's when I feel more relaxed in the whole 9 yards. It's my solace being out there. And that was the freakiest time ever in my research area, when there was nothing. So,
do you feel that encounter you had, if you would have made the wrong type of move, do you think it would have attacked you if you wouldn't have started running backwards?
Actually, I don't know, Gary. Tell you the truth, because I'm thinking it was doing the old Indian thing, where and I believe it was a juvenile, because they call it count and coup. See how close you get without whoever you're going up close to sees you. And I really believe that's what it was doing. And it was a juvenile.
Well,
now, we went back the next day to my sighting. Me and several guys. I wasn't going back myself. By myself, that is. And we measured up on the tree. It was only around 7 foot. But the thing was 4 foot wide. And you can see where it was kneeling down next to that tree. It was huge. Muscular-wise, it was huge. And I've gotten in some serious arguments with some really big guys, and I'm telling you, I don't want to get in an argument with that. So I'm very thankful it wasn't aggressive.
Well, you know what? I can tell you they can be aggressive, because my wife let me take her new car that time we went up to the Canadian Rockies. I had to come back and explain why the passenger front fender and part of the door was all caved in. That was the encounter I had when it got back to, followed us back to the car. It was very, very aggressive. And I really feel, if I wouldn't have ran when I did, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I was never that scared when I was in the military. Never had that experience.
Exactly. When I was in the military, I never got that scared. And I was in some shaky situations. And I actually ran out in the middle of a gunfight and snagged a little kid up that was too scared to move while these guys are shooting at each other. I wasn't afraid of that. I wasn't. But that big SOB scared me. And I did have PSD from it. And I still get it once in a while. But several of my friends told me, talk about it. It makes it better. It really does. And at first I'm thinking they're idiots. But a month after that incident with it, me and my wife was invited to go camp out with a bunch of other Bigfooters from all over different states. It was just a camp out. It wasn't no investigation or. And I said, I'm down for that. I need to get out and do a little bit of camping and get back into the woods and that.
Well, you've done more than I have because, that happened in the early 2000s. I grew up where my father used to take us out backpacking and all that stuff. And when I was a kid, we'd go up to Mount Rainier or Mount Shasta. We'd go miles in. I have never gone back into the woods ever since my encounter, ever.
Oh, wow.
You couldn't pay me.
Well, I was told when I was a young kid, you fall off the bike, you get back on and ride. Don't be afraid of it. But it did take a while. And there's times now I'm afraid to go in the woods by myself. I ain't gonna lie about that. I headed to the research area a few different times. Now I don't feel like going in because of the fear. Excuse me. But the thing is, we've had, excuse me, I'm still getting over this cold. And then we went in the deep freeze here. But we've had several reports locally. And a good friend of mine I call him my mentor, that's been researching for a long time around here. He got a report shortly after in March we found the trackway. Me and my friend Brenda went walking out there, the Shenango Reservoir. And we walked up along the wood line and went on up in the woods and didn't really see much of anything up there. We come back out. I said, I'm walking along the water since we walked along the wood line going in. We found a trackway that went for over 100 yards. Now, this was in March. The lake was down, so there we had a nice beach area there, which usually you don't when you got the summer pull. Of course, I tried casting it and I screwed up the casting. But I got pictures of it. I took videos of it, me walking beside it, and you can see my impressions compared to the impressions of their print. And their print went down a good 1.25 inches. I might have went down 1/4 inch.
That tells you it was a lot of weight.
Yes, exactly. It was 14 inches long by about 6 3/4 inches wide to 7 inch wide. But the thing was, it's the beginning of March. And beginning of March in Pennsylvania is not warm. So, there ain't no big guy out there walking barefooted, number one. And I don't think a 500-pound man be walking out there like that. It might have been a little heavier. I don't know. I was 175 pounds, and I wasn't making the indentations like that.
Yeah, the one I seen probably was close to about, I would say, around 700-800 pounds. That's my estimate. Of course, I didn't ask it to stay on the scale. Well, what can we do to actually prove, other than the photograph, that they exist? Can we try trapping one? Can we try doing that? What can we do? That's what we physically need to do, is show proof that they really exist. And then there it is, that we got proof. Now,
but the problem there is, I believe the family unit does travel a lot together on a hunt or looking for food, whatever. I don't think they travel alone. Do you really want to try to trap one when there's others right there? Do you really want to try to kill one when others are right there?
Well, you know, you mentioned kill one. How do you know somebody isn't like dumb, stupid, wearing a costume of a Bigfoot, you know, while somebody's taking pictures of it, you know, like the one in Colorado. It was supposedly,
Yes.
I mean, people do this all the time. Could you imagine?
Are you talking about that train?
Yeah, that was.
Yes, that was. As soon as I saw that, I start researching it real deep, and I says, "Oh my God, this is just going to blow up all over the internet." And it's that people that own that traveling train put someone out there.
Well,
because they said you might see a Bigfoot, so keep your eyes open.
Well, you know what was also interesting? A retired detective went and investigated it, and he traced it down to two guys renting an off-road, you know, device, okay? And that company rents Bigfoot costumes. So you put the two together, and actually I looked in Photoshop, and
I did not hear that part.
Yeah, it was another put on. But, you know, people are risking their life by doing that because
big time.
There's some people who want to become famous. So if they could sit there and kill a Bigfoot, you know, hey, here's the proof. You know, it could be some guy that lives down your street you just killed.
I like that senator out in Oklahoma that offered the bounty. What kind of idiot?
Yeah, people, it's scary. I mean, you know, and honestly, you know, I've told this story a million times on the show, but my dad's brother was an avid hunter. And when I was a kid, he was up at Mount Shasta. That's totally changed now. But him and his oldest son were out bear hunting. And he had this bear on his, you know, lined up, and he pulled the trigger. He thought he had the kill shot. And he didn't. And literally the bear mauled my dad's brother. He was in the hospital for a month. They thought he was going to die. He was lucky his son was there because his son did kill the bear. But the thing is, he was scarred up for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And that's a bear. Just think what a Bigfoot would do. They could tear your head right off.
The juvenile, I believe it was a juvenile I saw, and yes, the juvenile could rip your head off. Imagine what a full adult Bigfoot could do.
Well, that's why I'm glad I ran as fast as I can. You know, again...
running as fast as you can. If that thing really wanted to get you, he would have got you.
Yeah, but here's the funny part. Now, I don't know if it was running, it had a mate with it or whatever. We ran, you know, my friend was a medical doctor. We ran, you know, through the woods. And again, this is where people don't go. And that's probably why we saw it. I mean, we're up in the middle of the Canadian Rockies at an old Japanese internment camp where they held prisoners in World War II. We ran about 2.5 miles back to the car, and, well, you know, it was there. As I got into the car, it was like 20-some feet away from the car, on the tree line, bending a tree over, like a 4-inch tree, like a twig, and it was screaming at me, and I'll tell you what, the smell, every time I think about it, I smell it. It was like if you took manure, urine, and took the hottest pepper imported from Africa and mixed it all together. And this was like the first week of June. The weather was still up in the Canadian Rockies. There was snow on the ground in places. It was cold, and it was burning my lungs. That's how pungent it was.
Well, Gary, different ones said about the smell. And thank goodness I didn't have that. Especially that close. I might have been throwing up at it. You know, as bad as the smell gets. I didn't have the smell. They said, well, did you hear it come up? No, I don't know if it was sitting there waiting, knowing that we're coming down. I did not notice it when I walked down. And someone goes to me, well, why didn't you notice it? Because I'm looking down the trail. I look to the left a few times as I'm walking slowly down, and I sort of glanced to the right, but I wasn't looking hard to the right. And so I didn't see it until I caught that movement, and I turned my head and looking straight at it. And that was scary. And I ain't lying, that was really scary. And that helped propel me to look even more into this after I was able to talk about it more and get out more. And I put on a local Facebook group page here that had nothing to do with the paranormal or the cryptids or anything. And I said I was an investigator for both. I says, if you have a report, please message me and we can discuss it. I like to hear if you had any experiences, whatever. Of course, I had some people laughing at me. You know, I didn't, but that was nothing. But I had a lady contact me, start telling me her and her cousins were coming back from skating. It was in February. And one crossed the road in front of them. And they were teenagers. I went, really? I went, about how tall it was. She says, I'm going to say about 8 foot tall. I went, wait, you know the color? She went, the hair was a dark brown, almost black. And I went, oh, okay. Can you describe it more? And she did. And I said, now when was this? She says, February 1962. I went, 1962? She went, yes. And when we got home, I told my parents, and they says, you didn't see that? You don't talk about it? You don't say nothing to nobody? And she's like, oh, okay, whatever, you know, type of deal. But she asked the farmer in behind their place, and he goes, yeah, I've seen him 3 times. But I quit telling people about it because they laugh at me. So, yeah, that's how that one went. But it was 1962. That was before the P&G film.
Oh, it was. Now, I got to say something to Kim out in chat. No, I wasn't near a ghost town. It was they had a prisoner of war internment camp up in the Canadian Rockies. And that's where they held the prisoners, or one of the internment camps in Canada, the Japanese prisoners. And that way, if they try to run away, Kim, where are they going to run off to? They're not going to get out of, they're out in the middle of nowhere. If people don't realize, Canada, if you go away from the major cities, you got small villages and small towns. But again, you get out there, you can go a long distance without seeing anything.
Yes.
And, that is really scary. And, I don't know where you're at. I know up here in Washington State, I know up in the Canadian Rockies, you got to be very careful because, what was really interesting is after I had our encounter, we drove about 15 or so miles. We ran into like a little old gas station, like a one pump gas station, old store. We went in there and the guy noticed we were kind of like upset. But Ed also noticed I urinated myself because that's how scared I was. And the guy goes, what's wrong? What's wrong? And we said, well, we finally admitted we saw a Bigfoot. And he said, yes, there's Bigfoot in this area. People have, seen him. Things have happened around here. But he also warned us that, you can get killed by bears up here. Because like a week before that, there was a man and his wife went out backpacking, out in the woods, and his wife tripped, sprained or broke her ankle or whatever it was. He went to get help. And by the time he got back, she was half gone. The bears were eating her.
Wow.
So you got to be careful. And that's what scares me. I've had guys on my show, honestly, Bill, that said, well, I go out deep in the woods. I don't have no protection. Maybe I got a jackknife. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe you won't run into a Bigfoot. You probably won't. But depending on what part of the country you are, there's other critters out there. Hey, dinner time.
We got bears around here. And I'm right on the PA-Ohio line now. But we used to live up near the Chestnut Ridge in Pennsylvania area. And I had a 500-pound bear that came walking down across my front yard. And that wasn't uncommon. But are the black, excuse me, the black bears aggressive? Nah, not usually.
Well, the bears around here, you got two types of bears, and the one, looks at humans as food, and very aggressive, and people up here not always, but there's always
Is that the brown or the grizzlies?
The grizzlies.
Yes, I wouldn't want to mess with a grizzly. They go 8, 9, 10 foot tall.
Yeah, and dinner time.
Oh yeah.
Now, JC, jump in here for a minute. You've gone out looking for Bigfoot. What type of evidence have you seen for Bigfoot?
Well, actually, it was 2 years ago down at Salt Fork, down there. I think it was deep off of Morgan Trail, I think it was. But anyway, it seemed like on the edge of a bank, looked like how something heavy had made a step and then slid down. It was like a footprint. Couldn't see the toes, but it was very interesting. Can't prove it was Bigfoot. But then I was looking where it was heading toward, and about 40 feet ahead of it was a tree, a sapling, maybe 5-6 inches around, and about 8 foot up. It looked like somebody grabbed it with two hands and bent it over and broke it. And here's the thing, this was in May. It was green. This tree was green, and there was so it wasn't snow breakage, anything like that. And it wasn't wind because all the trees around it were perfectly fine. There was no other breakages. So I can't prove that was Bigfoot, but boy, what the heck could have bent that over like that? And a big footprint, probably, I'm going to say 16 inches. It was headed right toward it. But that's seen recently, most recent.
Now, there at Salt Fork, near the golf course, and the road that goes down to the lodges, not the lodges, but the cabins, you see where a Bigfoot, and it had to be huge, come down and cross the road and head down into the woods, and there was a 3-inch round branch that was about 7-8 foot up that was twisted and broke down right on the edge of the wood line. And I'm checking this all out. Can't say a Bigfoot actually did it, but that branch wasn't going out over and leaning down where they were cutting the grass near there. It was in the way. It was bent down, like it was pointing down toward a trail. And I'm like, that's a good possibility, especially the size of that branch and the way it was twisted and broke down. And that was at Salt Fork, too, so it's hard. So, JC, I know what you're saying about those breaks there, too. And I still do campouts at Salt Fork. And we're doing one this end of April there. And it's very interesting. Yeah, there's always some kind of activity going on there when we're there.
Well, again, I'm going to go back because my daughter was married to two people from two Indian tribes, the Nisqually and the Muckleshoot tribe in Washington State. And I got to know the medicine man on the Nisqually and the medicine woman at the time of the Muckleshoot. And they told me, going back to like the 1800s, 1870s, 1840s, whatever, that these creatures would actually come in and raid their villages and run off with babies and their
Yes.
women, and then they would go to get their loved ones back, and they would find bones and body parts, where
Right.
these things were cannibal.
Yeah, I believe they can be. Uh, you know, some people say, what do they do with the dead? Do they eat them?
It could
That's
be.
a possibility.
Well, look, in Africa, there's still a tribe there. It still consumes their dead.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe they're cannibals. Maybe they look at it as, hey, steak to barbecue tonight. I don't know. But again, let's be honest with you. If you're out in the woods, like I grew up in the woods, a body in the woods, honestly, give it a week and a half and it's pretty much gone. The
Yes.
animals are going to tear pieces off of it. It's going to be scattered around. You're not going to find much of anything.
And the acidity and the moisture coming up out of the ground when you're in the woods helps deteriorate that. And, you know, I've seen where a deer carcass, without animals actually attacking it deteriorate in 2 weeks in the woods. I was doing the research on that, and that for my own sake, say, all right, what's going on here? And within 2 weeks, you just had the hair over the bones laying there. The meat and everything was deteriorated and gone.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and when you look at it, Bill, there's been reports of hunters that disappeared, but then they found their guns, been wrapped around a tree. I don't know, unless you're Arnold, and I don't think he can actually do it, wrap a 30-06 or something in the barrel. JC, you think that could happen? Somebody could just bend a barrel? Because that's what they have found in some cases.
There is no way. I know from what Chris George, I think, reported once. Listen, the gauge of strength into a barrel of a gun is so incredible. To be able to take it and bend it, it's like that sapling. To be able to take that, you can't bend that. The amount of force and kinetic energy needed to do that is just mind-boggling.
And a wrap it around tree. Now, December on chat, I was going to say too. We were naive. We were out there. We didn't think about, because when you go to Canada from America, you can't bring any weapons. And here we were out up in the Canadian Rockies. It seems like the area, and there's bears up there. And we didn't even realize, like bear spray. Now, bear spray will do one or two things. It's either going to get the bear off you and run it away, or it's going to piss it off and it's going to attack you.
yeah.
But, we had nothing. And how many people go out? That's what scares the out of me. People go out looking for Bigfoot out there with no weapons, no nothing, and I'm not talking about, there's different groups of Bigfoot hunters. I call the pretenders. These are the ones that go next to a campground, a picnic ground, and, here's a trail that 100, 200 people walk a day, 20 feet off the trail. Oh, there's a lean-to. Bigfoot made it. I just don't, I don't buy that. I just don't buy that shit.
No, you can't. You can't buy into that. Number one, you got to think outside the box. And then you got to think, what could have caused this? Now you're going down a trail that 100 people travels a day, and it's, like you said, 15, 20 feet off the trail. Here's that lean-to. No. Even though it's illegal in Pennsylvania to make a man-made blind to hunt from out of trees and stuff, I still see it in PA. And it's close to a trail.
Interesting.
I don't think. Did a man do it? I think so.
That's just it. You know, compared to ufology, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people fake UFO pictures. The same thing, again, like with Bigfoot, a lot of people lie, they fake it, they do that. There's some people, like, there's the one guy I know named Wayne, I'm not going to mention his last name, but everywhere he goes, he sees a Bigfoot. JC, you know who I'm talking about, but it's everywhere. Oh, there's a tree stump. Oh, that is a Bigfoot. Can't you see it? You know who I'm talking about.
I know some people like that too. I was out with a couple friends and we were hiking, and I'm looking. I'm like, wow, that's pretty far out there. I don't have my binoculars in my backpack, and my one friend had a small pair in his front pocket of his coat. I says, I don't know what that is out there, but it looks like a Bigfoot, but I don't know. He said, I see it. Wait a minute. He pulls his binoculars out, looks, tree stump.
Yeah. I had a guy here last week because he knew you were coming on the show. He said, look at this right in there. It's a Bigfoot. You can clearly see it. So I take that image and opened it up in Photoshop, and guess what it was? It was part of a tree.
Yes.
Now we got a caller. It has a question for you. Okay. Who do we have?
Hi, this is Kim.
Hi, Kim. How you doing tonight?
My question. Oh, I'm doing well, Gary.
Your question?
My question to the guest is, if he, came upon the body of a Bigfoot out in the woods, would he, pick it up and bring it in for it to be inspected, or would he leave it on the ground and not tell anybody about it? It's kind of an ethical question. And
I would take pictures.
Leave it be so it couldn't be hunted.
I would take pictures, and I'm talking a bunch of pictures. I would also.
How about removing a finger or something so you got proof to bring it back for DNA?
I'll get a hold of a couple of my trusted friends that are researchers and take them back there.
Yeah, but
and then we'll decide together how we're going to handle that situation. Am I going to just take a finger or try to get the whole body out? No, and I'm not going to have a media frenzy to come tramping all through there. And you don't know if a family member of that Bigfoot's close by, and you try to do something to the body, what's going to happen to you?
Well, how about if you?
I don't want to take a chance.
How about if you removed hair? Of course, again, there's been hair DNA, which comes back as not, undetectable of human DNA or bear DNA or some type of cross. But I mean, I would grab a handful of hair. I might
do that. But a young man over in England, Daniel Lee, he got some eDNA and had it tested in that. And Old World Monkey came back. They don't have Old World Monkey in England.
No.
So, okay, that's kind of weird to me. Yeah, but that's what it came back. Here in the States, a few of the DNA come back unknown primate. Okay. Humans are primates, so it's hard to say. But definitely, I'd take a bunch of pictures because I always carry my cell phone, and believe me, I'll be taking tons of pictures of it. And then I get out of there, make my calls to my friends, say, "You got to get here, get here now," and then we go in as a group and decide what we're going to do then.
You know, a good friend of mine, you know, who's no longer with us, Art Bell, he had a caller in who claimed that him and a bunch of vets from Vietnam were out, you know, poaching, and they ran into a Bigfoot, and they killed it. And then as the light started coming up, they found its mate, and then they killed it because they were scared of what could happen, because they were concerned because, you know, it kind of looked human. So they supposedly buried it. Now, Art said he checked it out, and he said he thought it was legit. But, you know, again, I mean, you know, if I was young again, I'm old, I'm 72, but if I had it over again and I ran across a Bigfoot that time when it came after us, and if I would have found a body, for example, I would, of course, back then DNA wasn't like it is today, but just think about it now, I would go for blood, saliva, some hair, or anything to bring it back, and then, you know, we need proof. Okay, that will end the hoaxsters. That's going to end everything if we can actually have proof. JC, what do you think?
Well, did you hear about Dr. Darby Orcott?
Yes.
And what he's doing?
Yes.
I believe in him, and the way he's doing it. And, you know, at first, before I had my sighting, I believed, we need DNA. We need DNA. I'm not so much into the DNA now, but with Darby, I believe he's going to make us that much closer to understanding what they are, because he's not keeping whatever you turned in, and these colleges are backing them on this now, where before you didn't really have anyone. Oh, no, we ain't touching it. So I believe in that. But myself, I know they're real, as you do, Gary. You know they're real because you've seen them.
I know what the car looked like.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that I almost killed my friend, dragging him when he got to the car, shoving it in reverse because I was panicking like you wouldn't believe, and I was dragging my friend while he was trying to get in the car as I shoved it in reverse and trying to get out of there, because I mean, you know, like it was, like I said, the scariest thing. But look at these things; they have been reported of like taking huge trees, especially up in Alaska, and reversing them in the ground. Like they're marking their territory.
Even Ohio. And the Alleghenies, same thing. How strong can you got to be to rip a tree out of the ground and planting it upside down? Scary.
It is.
It's scary.
Now, JC, jump in here. What's that one trail that goes for hundreds of miles that people...
Appalachian Trail.
Yeah,
the Appalachian.
How many, you know, there's been reports of Bigfoot there, and there's been reports of people just vanishing on that trail.
You're right. There's lots of people missing. And it's funny you mention that, because just yesterday I seen a guy give his report when he was a kid, and he lives near he was in West Virginia, lived near or right on or off that Appalachian Trail, and he would go, they moved to this new town, and he would always play in the woods, but the locals told him, don't go in there, or if you do, don't go too far, be out by nightfall. Well, he didn't listen. You know, he's up there. Not only that, he's like 10, 12 years old. He's peeing on all these trees all over the place, right? So one night, he's coming home, but he hears something that's trailing him, but he can't, you know, off flanking him, but trailing him. He can't see it. And it's getting dark. He gets home, and his bedroom was like a porch that was all glassed in. Now he's in there, and this thing followed him all the way home, and it was scratching and knocking on his window, and he's seen it. And then the thing started howling at him. It was mad. He assumes it was mad because it was peeing all over his, you know, these trees up there.
Going potty all over. How's that?
Yeah, he's going potty all over.
We're on some radio stations.
Right.
Yes.
He was going potty all over these trees, but his dad didn't want to believe it, right? Because his dad had some issues, but his dad happened to look out the window. His dad actually seen it, but then he made him and his whole family like act like it didn't happen, don't admit it, and it was a whole fiasco. But the poor guy, he's got PTSD to this day from that.
Oh yeah, Gary still does. I still do. But we deal with it the way we know how, and unfortunately, some people can't deal with it at all.
Well, here's the point too, Bill. A lot of people, I'm not going to mention his name. He's the one that did the Sierra sounds, Ron Moorhead. I won't mention Ron Moorhead. For years, he claimed he saw Bigfoot and he recorded the sounds and all this stuff. But now he's kind of going off of them maybe not being flesh and blood, but maybe something else. And that, what I find, it's the same way with people with ETs, UFOs. They get frustrated after a long period of time. And then they start thinking out of the realm. Well, it could be. And from what I seen, it was flesh and blood. I just don't think it's something other than that. I think there's a species out there because I've heard reports, when we had Christopher George on our show a couple of times ago. He's a retired law enforcement park ranger. He was actually in charge of 2 national parks at one point. And, again, there's been reports of things that are strange. There was like I said, my listeners will know this, my regular ones, a case where a young kid wanted to get a photograph of a Bigfoot, and he was known by all the rangers who he was, and then all of a sudden he vanished. And then they found his body, and his body was severed from the belly button. From everything from the belly button up was totally gone. It was just his belly button to his shoes sitting on a stump. His bag of camera equipment, his food was still in a bag. And what Christopher said, it looked like somebody took a laser and just severed the upper part of the body and removed it. James, you remember that one, don't you?
Oh yeah, I definitely remember that one. And I think that also that same case, no, it wasn't no predation on it, and I even think none of the insects even took part in eating the body away. And not only that, there was food found in his backpack still.
Yeah, so if it was a creature looking for food, it would have went for the backpack along. But what would sever an upper part of the body? And he also said,
broke it in half like that.
Yeah, and he said enough things that really, really scare me. Because could be Bigfoot, maybe they're ETs. They've been reported with UFO sightings. I don't know. All I know is honestly, Bill, is what I physically saw and what
exactly. And that's what I said too, Gary, is what I saw looked like flesh and blood. Was it ET? I didn't see it get transported up or say, beam me up, Scotty. But I'm not dismissing that fact yet because we don't know. But what I saw, and that's what I'm running with, is flesh and blood. But I'm still open to, is it extraterrestrial? I don't know. Does it jump through portals? I don't know. No one can really say one way or the other. That's it. Even with Ron Moorhead, starting to lean the other way.
But you see, through the years, I've known people that claim that they could be in their trailer and they could summons with their mind a Bigfoot, and a Bigfoot would come banging on the side of their trailer. I just don't know. Again, we need credible.
Banging on the side of a trailer is gone. As big as they are, they're going to knock the wall out.
Yeah, flip it over.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not buying into that. They're summoning it so they can bang on the trailer. I won't buy into that. Can they mind speak? I'm not sure. I really don't know.
I don't know. You can always say if you get in trouble with law enforcement, well, a Bigfoot telecommunicated with me and made me do it. I don't know. Hey, Bill, our time is up. You have a Facebook group and a podcast or a Facebook Live. You want to share that with the listeners there?
Yes, it's a Facebook group. It's a private group. I made it go private because of the trolls that are out there. It's called Agents of the Unexplained. And I do a podcast every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And we cover everything from the cryptids to the paranormal. I've always been fascinated with it all. I seen a UFO when I was a teenager, and I witnessed an apparition in the one house my wife and I bought, and she saw it the first a few nights before I did. So I always believed in.
Okay,
and so Agents of the Unexplained. You can catch us on YouTube for the podcast, Facebook for that. And we are putting on a conference again this year, March 30th. It's called the Penn Ohio Paranormal Conference. It's going to be at the Hickory VFW in Hermitage, Pennsylvania. And we'll have that going on from 10 to 6, March 30th this year.
Okay, great. And get that information over to JC, and I'll put it up on our website.
Definitely.
Okay, my friend, I'm going to let you go. You have a great weekend, Bill.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, you take care.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, my friend, you take care.
You too now. Bye.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then me and JC, if you want to give us a call, we can take a call and just wrap up the show here tonight. So stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. We'll be right back.
Now, for all of you out there who need to know a little bit more about a little bit less, here he is.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am not Boris Badenov, celebrity spokesperson for Wavely SMU Health Food Stores. Choice of fearless leader. No. He loves it. Anyway, to bring you a younger feel to your life, we have great health foods made with many chemicals we can't pronounce, only banned in California.
Oh, just like you, darling. Always trying to help others get a little more pain.
What can I say? I'm a nice guy. Anyway, this week at Wavely SMU Health Food Stores, we have a snack to give you the energy you need.
Boris, you have great idea.
Our deal of the week, Sasquatch foreskins, prepared by regal rabbis. Who knew Bigfoot was Jewish?
Well, my real name is Sasquatch Bigfootstein.
Low in calories, low in carbs. This is one low-hanging fruit snack. Limited to one bag because how many you think we got? Get that special feeling with Sasquatch foreskins. Oh, very good, you love it. Available now at Wavely SMU Health Food Stores.
Well, JC, I got 2 packs, and I'm going to be watching The Thing here tonight, and I'm going to be eating those foreskins from Bigfoot.
Let me know how those taste later.
I already did. They kind of have a weird taste to them. They have a tang to them.
Are they salty?
Not really.
No.
They kind of have a pepper taste to them.
A little twang to it.
A little twang, like aftertaste.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take your word for that one, Gary.
Yeah, they're supposed to give you more virile, to your life.
Yeah, it'd probably make you stand up straighter.
Or make you stand out.
Yeah,
one of the two. That's getting back to the Bigfoot here, we're wrapping it up on that, is if, I really feel that, just taking a picture of a Bigfoot, if you run across one laying there dead, right? If it was me, I would try to get some hair samples, some blood samples, saliva, or something, and bring it back, because we need physical proof. And if we have this physical proof, then we can say, okay, they really exist. Because I don't know, maybe I ran across somebody who weighed over 500 pounds that like wearing gorilla type of costumes back, the early 2000s, out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, if you happen to see one, we got a caller, Gary.
Okay, well, we're going to take that caller in a second, but think about that. I mean, again, I'm not saying going out and get your 30-06 and go off a Bigfoot. I wouldn't recommend that because, again, like I keep preaching, somebody could be dressed as a Bigfoot and then you're going to be killing them, and you're going to be in prison for your rest of life. You don't want to kill one. But I really feel, honestly, if you have one, I would try to get some DNA and prove it. Now, Tom's on the line. Tom is retired, law enforcement. What's your feeling? If you ran across Tom out in the middle of the woods, a Bigfoot dead, wouldn't you try to get some samples of the body to bring back?
Well, your second guest made it a good point, and that is that there may be a pack of those out there. There may be family of them. And so what I would do is I would take as many, I think that his suggestion was good. I'd take as many pictures as I could. I would take some hair samples, and I would beat feet out of there.
I'd take his ball sack and run off with it. Well, somebody's doing it. Have you heard that new commercial for the, not the pork rinds, but the Bigfoot?
Well, I'll put it this way. If you do that, you have more chutzpah than I do.
So what did you think of our first guest tonight, Ruta?
I'm so glad you mentioned that to me. She was absolutely captivating to me. She exuded something that a lot of entertainment people today do not have. She exuded intelligence, and she had exuded class, she exuded grace, and she exuded charm. She is one of the most wonderful guests, in my opinion, that you've ever had on. I really, really liked her.
Oh, I got to ask you a question. I'm sure you watch Hogan Harrells, and you watch Andy Griffith's show. And did you ever have a crush on her like I did?
I always thought she was gorgeous and hot, to be quite frank. But I mean, the thing that I really like her about, her was the fact that not only was she beautiful, but she had intelligence, and she had poise, and then she was, the talent that she has and what she brings to bear. You can't help but like a person like that.
And you're right. How many people would have the, chutzpah to call Khrushchev?
She was determined. But I mean, when you consider the era that she was in, when you consider that things were really, really draconian, I think most people that listen to your show don't realize how draconian things were behind the Iron Curtain. In all of those nations, Latvia, Lithuania, etc., those times were extremely draconian. They were very hard. It was extremely totalitarian, extremely authoritarian. And people, for her to do what she did and get as far as she did is outstanding. I think it's a really wonderful story because it's a true story. And the fact that she was able to pull it off, I think that there was some divine intervention there. That's my opinion.
Well, the whole point, with my interview with her is I wanted people to know what the real her is. And she's not just a famous movie star or TV star. She was a real person that really, really, grew up with the parents that grew up there, starving to death, peasants, and very humble.
Well, like I said, you couldn't help but like her.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else you want to talk about? You want to talk about your 15-7 Etzel? Did you buy that sports car?
I'm still working on it. I'm trying to find the right year with the right horsepower at the right price. I'm looking for either a 2019 through 21.
Okay.
In 1919, they increased the horsepower from 151 to 181, which doesn't sound like much, and they also increased the torque. But when you're talking about a sports car that only weighs 2,400 pounds, and the way that they've got it geared and the way they have the suspension set up, the MX-5 is a fun get up and go car to drive, and that's the reason I want one.
And you're going to get a little cap to go with it to wear when you're in it?
A jacket.
No, I didn't say. I said a cap. You need to have that cap on your head when you're driving that sports car.
I'll probably get the cap and wear a Metatron Power and Light T-shirt.
Yeah. Well, hey Tom, you have a good weekend, will you?
You do the same. Take care. You and James both. Bye bye.
Okay. Well, too. Think about this, JC. I mean, has anybody actually came in your area with actually any proof of Bigfoot existing?
That's a good question. Really, you can say that about anywhere, but and that's the thing. Yeah, they've got pictures, a lot of fake pictures, and people have seen them in a lot of personal accounts. But until you even DNA, Gary, as you kind of mentioned, can be protested or detested or saying, no, I don't know. Was it there? They say it was contaminated but here's the thing. You don't even have a base DNA to compare it against. So,
my Aunt Bertha, who used to work at the nudist camp, you could take it and cross-reference it with her.
Yeah. Does she still put the flowers on top of the
No, but she doesn't play the saxophone anymore because she couldn't afford a new pair of dentures.
Oh, okay.
She still blows.
Yeah, but she's tooting all over town. Of course, everybody's saying that, but it's a small town.
Yeah, but again, I up here in Washington State, if you kill a Bigfoot, you're going to prison.
Yeah, your state is rich in reports and personal experiences with these creatures.
There's two places in this world if you're really looking for Bigfoot. Okay, at least the type of Bigfoot that we are talking about would be in Washington, Oregon, but mainly Washington because we have a lot of forests and a lot of this. Oh, we got another call. But, a lot of this forest has not been where any humans have even walked or been and that is the part where I really feel strongly. If you're looking for a Bigfoot, you want to go out where the population isn't and where they don't go. I take it we have Kim on the line. Kim, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. You've heard from me twice tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about the Bigfoot and whether or not, you should bring evidence or whatever if you find a dead Bigfoot laying, in the woods someplace.
I'd take its big toe and run off.
Pardon me?
I said I would take its big foot and run away.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of pulled either or direction because, okay, say you found the dead Bigfoot, you loaded it up. Where do you bring it for proof? And then wherever you bring it to, they're going to want to take it away. They're going to want to do their little testing on it and things. And just like, the giants and other things that they've found, they disappear, don't they?
They do, and that's the part. But you know what you do? So if you get a Bigfoot, you call up the media, and you call everything and say, okay, I'm going to take this Bigfoot to the local sheriff's department at this time. Be there. And make sure you call up all the news media. They're there. So that way they have videotape, they have proof, they have witnesses. And then, if something happens to it, then, how are they going to cover that one up?
But Gary,
yes?
Just like the UFO, my first husband and I saw going down I-70 in Kansas City. The UFO was right beside the highway, practically sitting on top of the houses. It made the news the next day. And they talked about how the people in the houses said their furniture and everything was flying up toward the ceiling when the UFO was overhead. They had that on the news the next day, and then it disappeared. You can't find anything out about it after that.
No, but
That's what I'm saying.
If you have a bunch of people there, if you notified enough people to be there, okay, where you had maybe 30, 40, 50 people with cameras and video, maybe then the guys in, the black suits will come after you and take it all away from you. But I mean, if you had the news media there, the radio, the TV reporters with their cameras going and call up everybody to be there when you're bringing that body in, then it's going to be kind of hard. But that's just it. I'm not looking to go out and kill a Bigfoot because I would never do that. But we need proof, okay? I can sit here and claim, Kim, to the day I die, that I was chased by a Bigfoot and my friend was with me, but that's his hearsay. That's all.
Right.
But we need proof. That's why I said we're going to take JC this spring, and I'm going to go get a bunch of Jell-O. I'm going to get a slip and slide. We're going to chain him against a tree, and we're going to put gallons of peanut butter around his feet. And when a Bigfoot comes to eat him, we're going to drop a net over the Bigfoot and catch him, and there's our proof.
I think he needs to be put in a very skimpy pink bikini.
Latex?
And that should, entice the Bigfoot in there.
That would do it. Maybe put a wig on him, too, because he doesn't have no hair.
That's true.
A little mascara and a little lipstick.
I can hear you, too,
Yeah, they may want some hair on JC, so we'll put some hair on him, too. Maybe, even some wigs, on his thighs, so he has some hair hanging down and that sort of thing. Yeah, maybe even some high heels.
Yeah, you know what he's going to do. He's going to have somebody say how much.
Yeah, I know.
Well, unfortunately, with my sense of humor, I would take him down to a main street of town and yeah, I don't know. But that's beside the point. But, in your whole life, have you ever seen anything that resembled or heard any strange noises out in the woods that you thought could have been a hairy man?
Well, let me tell you, summer before last it was, we heard some of the most awful sounds outside of our house. Now, we live in a small country town, and we're 2 blocks from pastures and fields. So, all the critters that are out there come to our neighborhood. And we heard the most horrific sounds and screams several nights in a row. Well, one night we found out what it was, and it was foxes. They were out there doing their screams and their hollering. Now, after hearing that, I thought, man, it would be easy to think that a fox making all the different sounds and screams that they make could be possibly, people would think it was Bigfoot if they had never heard those sounds before. It literally scared us to death because we didn't know what it was.
Well, Kim, yes. But I was going to say, when I was in high school, my parents took us to Camino Island. That's in Washington State, and left us there for the weekend, me and 2 of my friends. And we had a tent, and we were naive, kind of. And we left our beer, not our beer, but our food on the picnic table that night. And in the middle of the night, we started hearing these noises, and it was really scary. It was a pack of raccoons, and they were growling and making weird noises. We thought they were bears. And I'll tell you what, raccoons will attack humans when they're in a pack over food. They'll go after you.
They're mean. People don't realize how mean raccoons are. They'll feed them on the porch with their cats. And I've tried to tell people, you don't want to do that, because I've seen them kill dogs before. So, you don't want to mess with raccoons. But as far as thinking that, as far as the Bigfoots go and feeling like I had a close encounter, both my boys live out on Coal Mine Road that runs right beside the Missouri River, outside of Dover, Missouri. And there was, I think it's 10 years or so ago, a police officer that was taking his girlfriend home, and he came upon a Bigfoot. And we spoke, David and I spoke to him personally. And so, I told my boys about it, and they kind of, oh yeah, Mom, you know how kids are. If Mom says it when they're adults, then, she doesn't know what she's talking about. So I said, okay, well, just Bigfoot was spotted right here on this road that you guys live on. And so then they found a newspaper article about it. And they showed us on Thanksgiving that year the newspaper article. And I said, so now do you believe? And they go, yeah. Well, I was sitting out there at my son's house, sitting out on the patio. Everyone else was inside, and it was dark, and I was just kind of enjoying seeing stars and being out there on the patio. And all of a sudden, I didn't hear anything, I didn't smell anything, and I didn't see anything. But the hair on the back of my neck just stood up, and I knew I was being watched, and I knew I better get in the house. And I went in the house, and I told the boys, I said, you know what? There's something out here, because, I've never had that feeling out there before. And I've been out in the dark many, many times over there, because we have cookouts and stuff a lot over there. So anyway, I honestly believe that there was something there, and it's a perfect place for Bigfoot. There's orchards, apple, peach orchards. We have, wineries there. They grow grapes. We have all the corn and wheat. And then they have, deers. We have a huge deer population out here. And the river and the tributaries of the river. So it's pretty much Bigfoot heaven out here with the food sources. And we also have mining caves still.
Yeah, and that's a good place for them to be, because, the American natives, they claim that Bigfoot lived in caves up here. That's their thing.
Yeah, and all this land around here has mines that run everywhere, coal mines. It was, all the coal that came out of this land is ridiculous. And if you go over by the river, you'll still see coal mine openings and things like that. So they have a really good spot for it. And I do know a guy that I worked with that lived out there close to one of the gravel mines where they mine the gravel and things. And he said that while he was working there, he saw Bigfoot. So they're here.
Yeah. Well, Kim, I'm going to let you go. Say hi to your hubby. You guys have a great weekend, will you? And clean the rest of those paintbrushes, will you?
Oh, believe me, they're ready to go.
Okay, kid. You take care.
You too.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Well, this time of year is mating season for coyotes. So if you live in an area that has coyotes, be very careful with your small dogs. Just where I live, it was in the news. Well, a family had their dog out, And it was a good-sized dog. And guess what? Coyotes drug it away. So if you have, in any area where coyotes are, it's mating season right now for coyotes for the next couple of weeks. So be careful. JC, you have any coyotes in your neighborhood?
Oh, they're a nuisance. Matter of fact, a lot of the people in the country, couple of my relatives even, they trap them because they're such a nuisance there, and they can be dangerous. You're right, the small pets. Plus, bobcats all over the place. And she was talking about foxes. I'm going to tell you something. Bobcats and foxes, they can make some ungodly noises that you would think, what is that?
Oh, they can. Again, there's a lot of things out there. We just don't know what they are. But, these things, foxes and raccoons, and there's all kinds of things out there. I was naive too, because we used to have a raccoon here. I don't know what happened to it. But years ago, we used to have a raccoon that come in the house, and it would sit on the couch and watch TV with us. I'm not joking. We'd have the window open during the summertime. It would just make itself at home, and it actually was eating the cat and dog food all the time. And it was very, it was kind of like, and we also had a possum the same way, awesome, whatever you want to call it. It was house friendly. But, these things, if they're wild, you don't know what they're going to do. Anyway, I want to thank all of our guests tonight. Bill, it was rather interesting with him, and Ruta Lee. I just want to say I'm going to take her up on that this summer. That she offered it. I'm going to take it up, and I tell you what, we learned a lot about her, and I have a lot of respect for what she did. Khrushchev calling him up and not giving up, and I tell you what, wow, that's all I can say.
Yes, let me tell you something. Of all the guests we've had, she's got the most compliments from our chat from any other guest we've ever had in 6 years.
Well, she has elegance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which a lot of people don't have. Who's our guest next week on my show?
Well, we have David Hubbard coming on. He's going to be talking about how the aliens and Eisenhower had a meeting and how there's a great treaty that they made with some of these bad aliens and how they might want to eat us.
Yummy.
Yeah, and then we got Michael Herrera coming back. He was one of the well-known UFO whistleblowers. He was a fantastic guest a few months back when he was on. He's going to be back on. And then we have John Barbaro coming on. He did some stuff with the JFK assassination and a lot of other stuff he's done from Hollywood and books and authors and screenplays. And then Mark D'Antonio is going to come on with some more updates.
Yeah, we're going to talk about flat Earth.
Uh-oh.
There's still people believing that there is a flat Earth.
Yeah, and that eclipse that you see it's just an illusion.
It is. And don't forget all those satellites are held up by big giant weather balloons too. That's what one of the leaders of the flat Earth movement is making all these weird claims.
Yeah.
The moon is flat. Saturn is flat. The sun is flat. My first wife wasn't, though.
No. Like I know.
And I want a big shout out to Mary in New Zealand, who's a big fan of the show. I want to thank you and to Linda and to December, who evidently lives up near the Canadian Rockies, and Kim and David and Tom and everybody else that's been on here tonight. I just want to, and Truth is Natural Law. I want to say thank you for being on chat and everybody else. I tell you, tonight I really enjoyed the show. We actually went an extra half an hour with our first guest tonight because she had so much to say.
Oh, we could have talked to her for hours. Seriously.
Yeah. And, again, with Jim Neighbors, I met him when he was in Seattle. He got married to his mate in Seattle because it was the first state in the country where the same sex could get married.
Guy had a fantastic voice.
Oh, yeah. And I like it. Surprise! No, anyway, but, he was really good. I really, he could really sing. I remember him as Gomer Pyle on Andy Griffith's show that migrated into his own TV show and all that. He actually gave the show up. They wanted to do another year of it.
Yeah. He was big in the 60s and 70s.
Can you imagine James Arnaz, a big guy? And here she is, right? Here's this poor little girl, right?
Ruta.
And, I wasn't going to mention. This poor little girl. You wrecked my story here.
Oh, sorry.
And he throws a blanket over her head, and he swings her around, and there's a door frame there, and knocks her cold.
Yeah, hey, that's part of the pitfalls of being an actor and doing stunts.
Yeah, well, that wasn't a stunt.
not in the way they thought, anyway.
Well, everybody have a good one. We will catch you, on the other side. So everybody have a good one. We will catch you later.
Now is the time more than ever to get that hometown water. Freshly recycled with that great recycled taste you will love. Just ask any smart person you know.
I love hometown water, and I'm a what word is this? Rhodes Scholar.
While you're getting that great tasting water, get a fresh brick of that great tasting meaty Soylent Green, made with real recycled man-made, we're not kidding, meat. That's always great tasting and good for you. It's endorsed by everyone.
Hello. As a 100% real female woman, I happily speak on behalf of all genuine non-male women-style ladies and say these recycled, easy-to-drink and eat products are totally great, and if you don't buy them, you'll be struck down and sentenced to eternal damnation. Thank you.
Recycled hometown water and recycled meaty Soylent Green man-made man meat is available at
in the 38 states with no common sense where this is still legal.
Your nearest farm fresh markets. Pick some up today.
Batteries not included. Void in Nebraska.
Who's friends with all the night dreamers talking to you at night? Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's talk show radio Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to,